Chapter 1079. Not going anywhere. Chapter 1079. Not going anywhere. What was more, she saw Xianyi leaning against a tree with a sword between his crossed arms. He only had to look up to spot Feng Wu. Xianyi then lifted his head involuntarily and seemed alarmed. Frightened, Feng Wu cringed, and without thinking, fell back into perching phoenix. No, she was trapped here. Feng Wu was stumped, but not for long, for she heard approaching footsteps, along with the sound of Feng Sun's berating. She was just here. How come you didn't see her? Find her for me. Feng Sun and Xianyi were going to meet up, and if one drew a straight line between the two of them, Feng Wu was right in the middle. She turned around and headed for the backyard of perching phoenix. She hid herself in one of the rooms. Behind her was an erotic scene, and the sound of suggestive panting filled the air, but Feng Wu wasn't affected at all. She knew she couldn't remain here. From what she knew of Feng Sun, she was sure that he would widen the search and turn every room upside down, even those he had already searched. Feng Wu frowned at that thought. Raising an arm, she sniffed at herself. The scent was very faint now, and wouldn't be detected if she kept her distance from him. But where was she going to hide now? The last thing Feng Wu wanted was to be caught, for that would lead to the incident with the immortal spiritual fruit. Jun Linyuan had disliked her to begin with, and if he knew the truth about the fruit, he would definitely strangle her himself. Just then, Feng Wu heard more footsteps, accompanied by angry shouts. Come out! Come out for an inspection. We're from Northern Feng Mansion. Arrest them all. The shouts were like a death knell in Feng Wu's ears, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. Feng Wu did the calculations in her head. At this speed, they would reach her in less than 3 minutes. She couldn't hide here any longer. Meanwhile, the couple on the bed had also reached the climax. Since the front door was blocked, Feng Wu rolled over the floor and quietly made her way to the window. She then reached out and slowly cracked open the window. She snuck out through the window, closing it behind her, as if it had never been touched. On the bed, the girl's eyes flickered as she asked bewilderedly in between pants. Did the window open? Lying on top of her, the man turned his head toward the window as he thrust it. It was tightly shut without a crack. The girl wanted to say something, but the man stopped her with a kiss. Crawling over the wall like a spider, Feng Wu quickly moved toward the end of the corridor, where the lights were the brightest. For she knew that the most dangerous place could also be the safest. With the faint scent still on her, she wouldn't be able to hide anywhere. Hence, she would rather remain out in the open. That way, Feng Sun might look past her. Hiding outside a window of the brightly lit building, Feng Wu listened carefully. It was quiet inside except for the sound of a couple kissing. Good. Feng Wu took the opportunity to sneak in through the window. She landed silently on the floor and closed the window behind her. She moved as smoothly as a floating cloud. The two people in the room were none other than Miss Fengqi and Zhuqinglu. Their feelings for each other were mutual, and they were both lost in the passionate kiss, as they ignored everything else. Feng Wu hid in the shadow of a closet, where she wouldn't be spotted unless one looked closely. Chapter 1080. Quicker than words can describe. Chapter 1080. Quicker than words can describe. Feng Wu noticed that she was in a very spacious room, which looked like a dressing room separated into 2 halves by a giant screen in the middle. On one end was a busy scene, where young girls in identical seductive dresses were busy putting on makeup. On the other side of the screen, Miss Fengqi and Zhuqinglu couldn't get enough of each other. Young master, Fengqi wants to serve you and keep you company forever. Please don't say no. Fengqi. So this is the famous Miss Fengqi, thought Feng Wu. Gee, don't worry. That Mu the Sixth won't be able to do anything. I, Zhuqinglu, promise you that I'll win the bid tonight and make you mine from now on. Zhuqinglu. Feng Wu couldn't believe her ears. What an incredible coincidence. She had only just put out a hit on Zhuqinglu with the assassin organization. And here he was, right here in perching phoenix. Feng Wu tentatively stuck her head out and stole a glance at the man. Her eyes lit up. It really was Zhuqinglu. She would never forget his face, For Zhuo Qinglu had been there when Zhuo Qingwan destroyed Feng Wu's true phoenix blood. Moreover, Zhuo Qinglu was the one who had held Feng Wu down, so that Zhuo Qingwan could do it. Feng Wu's eyes blazed with hatred at the sight of her old enemy. Miss Fengqi seemed concerned, but if young Lord Feng intervenes... Zhuo Qinglu smirked in satisfaction. Don't worry. I have an idea. Miss Fengqi pressed. What's your plan? Zhuo Qinglu held nothing back from the girl he liked. Taking a packet of medicine out of his chest pocket, he waved it in front of Miss Fengqi. I have this baby. You're going to poison. Miss Fengqi blanched in fear and looked like she was going to faint. Zhuo Qinglu said with a straight face, Of course not. It'll only keep him on the toilet longer. Zhuo Qinglu only feared that Feng Sun would suddenly lose his mind and steal Fengqi away. Just then there was a quick knock at the door. Qi, the sun's about to rise and it's time for your dance. The guests are all waiting. Are you ready? Freeing herself from Zhuo Qinglu's arms, Miss Fengqi answered. Yes, Mama, just a second. After that, Miss Fengqi headed for the door. But Zhuo Qinglu wouldn't let her go that easily. He pulled her back and gave her another long, passionate kiss. Something then stirred inside Feng Wu. A dance. Feng Wu looked around. The dance wasn't solo, but had dozens of backup dancers. If she could hide in the crowd. Just then, quick footsteps approached outside the door, and Madame Cui spoke again. Young Lord Yu, you're back. Haven't you searched this room already? That was Madame Cui. Feng Sun's face was livid. That ugly girl was definitely here in Perching Phoenix, but he couldn't find her no matter what. How could a girl be so sneaky? Feng Sun. Feng Wu was alarmed. No, sitting around here would only get her caught. Seeing that everyone was distracted by the conversation outside, Feng Wu scanned the room with her bright eyes. One of the dancers was standing very close to her. She was already dressed for the part, and was retouching her makeup. Feng Wu decided to choose her, because half of the girl's face was covered with feathers. It would make her hard to recognize. What happened next was quicker than words could describe. Chapter 1081, Feng Wu on stage. Chapter 1081, Feng Wu on stage. Feng Wu was as bold as ever. She snuck up on the girl, and knocked the latter unconscious with the side of her palm. She then quietly dragged the girl into the closet, then changed into her clothes hairpiece. After that, Feng Wu copied the girl's makeup. With the feathers that covered her face, Feng Wu was able to achieve the seemingly impossible makeover. Quickly, everyone on stage. Now, Madame Cui rushed the group of dancers out of the room like a hen ushering out chicks. Madame Cui looked at Miss Fengqi in a regretful manner, then pulled the latter out of Zhuo Qinglu's arms. Quickly, you're needed downstairs. Zhuo Qinglu was an ideal choice, but young Lord Feng had shown up and Madame Cui was completely biased toward Feng Sun, despite the fact that Feng Sun showed no feelings for Miss Fengqi. Feng Wu hid herself well in the crowd, and quickly followed them out. The sound of musical instruments soon rang out in the main hall on the first floor. Miss Fengqi was dancing in the center of the stage, and was surrounded by the others like the moon among the stars. This was Feng Wu's first time dancing this piece, but luckily, she was a backup dancer and one of many among the crowd. It didn't take her long to catch up with the others. Meanwhile, Feng Sun was searching room after room for Feng Wu on the second floor. He couldn't understand it. That girl had to be here in Perching Phoenix, but why couldn't he find her? It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Frustrated, Feng Sun smacked the banister, making a loud bang. On stage, Feng Wu stole a glance at Feng Sun as she moved along with the music. She was secretly elated when she saw how vexed he was. The last place Feng Sun could imagine she would hide herself was on stage. Just then, Feng Wu sensed a cold gaze on her. To be more precise, the gaze was directed at the center of the stage. It was Xianyi. Feng Wu noticed that Xianyi was leaning against a column with his sword between his crossed arms, and a cold look in his eyes. She felt a chill run down her spine. Involuntarily, she danced more properly than before. Otherwise, Xianyi's sharp eyes would pick her out in no time. Feng Sun came down the stairs looking infuriated. Seeing him like that, Mu the Sixth rose to his feet in a hurry. Brother, please have a seat. Because of Feng Sun and Xian Yi's arrival, 2 more seats had been added to the first row. Feng Sun sat down in frustration, then grabbed a cup of tea and gulped it down. Mu the Sixth followed Miss Fengqi's dancing with an infatuated look on his face, while making an effort to talk to Feng Sun. Brother, did you not find the girl you were looking for? Feng Sun only snorted. Mu the Sixth said, Brother, don't be mad. We have more than enough girls here in Perching Phoenix. Look at those on stage. They come in all shapes and sizes. Brother, all you need to do is name one, and I'll bring her to you. Feng Sun gave him a "you idiot" look and couldn't be bothered to reply. Those girls on stage were nothing compared with that ugly girl. She might not be pretty, but she had the most amazing eyes. One would never forget them after they saw those eyes. All the girls on stage were just commonplace women. Meanwhile, Feng Wu wanted to jump for joy on stage. Good. Xianyi was going to stay here in the main hall. After this dance, she could jump over the wall and get herself out of this mess. Feng Wu was a little anxious, for this piece was quite long. Seeing that Feng Sun was staring blankly at the stage while his mind had wandered off, Feng Wu. Chapter 1082 Slightly Nervous. Chapter 1082 Slightly Nervous. And Feng Wu grew anxious. She desperately wanted the dance to end, so that she could make the great escape before Feng Sun showed up in front of her. Before long, the music slowly came to an end with the last note lingering in the air. Finally it was over. Standing in place, Feng Wu let out a breath of relief. Because of the curtain call, Feng Wu stood in the second row until the very last moment. Mu the Sixth grinned. Brother, look. With all the feathers covering half their faces, the girls all look so mysterious. What do you think? Feng Sun was in an impatient mood, and had no interest in any of the girls. After knowing someone as beautiful as Feng Wu, even Miss Fengqi was an ordinary woman in Feng Sun's eyes, not to mention those girls around her. He couldn't even be bothered to glance at them. Feng Sun then rose to his feet. Feng Wu was secretly relieved. Finally, he was leaving. However, Feng Sun paused as soon as he stood up. He spun around and stared at the girls on the stage. What did you just say? Feng Sun stared at Mu the Sixth. Mu the Sixth was dumbfounded. What did I say? Feng Sun said, Repeat it. Mu the Sixth said, I said the girls came in all shapes and sizes. The next sentence. If you like any of them. The one before that. Half of their faces are covered with feathers. Feng Sun snapped his fingers. That's it. After that, he stared at the girls on the stage with a grin, then walked toward them. Seeing Feng Sun get onto the stage, everyone's eyes shone curiously. Was young Lord Feng really interested in Miss Fengqi? Zhuo Qingliu's face was livid. Feng Sun had said only just then that he wasn't interested in Miss Fengqi. But why did he suddenly? Damn it. Clenching his fists, Zhuo Qingliu stiffened. If Feng Sun really wanted to use his power to take the girl away, there was nothing Zhuo Qingliu could do. He was getting closer and closer. Feng Sun had gone up to Miss Fengqi and was reaching out. Thrilled, Miss Fengqi shivered and blushed in expectation. If young Lord Feng really had his eye on her, she would be much better off with him than becoming Zhuo Qingliu's woman. Feng Sun had indeed reached out, but he only pushed Miss Fengqi aside. Out of my way. What? Miss Fengqi stood there baffled. Her face turned so red that her cheeks seemed to be bleeding. Damn it. Meanwhile, Feng Wu grew nervous. It was obvious that Feng Sun had grown suspicious of the girls on the stage. Feng Wu still smelled faintly of that bug, and she would be easily spotted if Feng Sun got too close. What should she do now? Feng Wu's heart raced. She was in the second row, and right now, Feng Sun was standing in front of them with his hands behind his back, and a bone-chilling look in his eyes. Take your feathers off. Feng Sun stared at them with a grim look on his face. The title of young Lord Feng alone was enough to intimidate them. Although the girls had no idea why the young lord gave that order, they still removed the feathers from their faces as told. Because of her tight schedule, Feng Wu had been a little hasty with her makeup. She could make it work with the feathers on, but without them, she had a 70% resemblance to the girl she had been disguised as before. They stood in two slanted lines. When Feng Sun walked past them, he could see all their faces in one go. Feng Wu. Chapter 1083 Couldn't he get any more dangerous? Chapter 1083 Couldn't he get any more dangerous? Feng Wu was a little on edge, but the more nervous she was, the calmer she looked. No one could tell how agitated she was deep down. Luckily, Feng Wu had put on her makeup, mimicking the dancer she had replaced. Otherwise, she would have been found out already. After searching the group, Feng Sun frowned. Because he couldn't smell the cream, which the ugly girl had used to disguise herself. That was to say, that girl wasn't wearing it at the moment. What Feng Sun didn't know was that with the right skills, even ordinary makeup could be used to disguise one's face. It was just that it wouldn't last as long. Feng Sun didn't see the familiar face at first glance, nor did he catch the scent. He frowned. Could it be that he had been mistaken? Was the girl not among the dancers? Feng Sun looked at the faces again. Your names, Feng Sun snorted. The others didn't think much of it, but Feng Wu was dumbfounded. That was because she didn't know the name of the girl she was impersonating. And she couldn't make up one, for everyone on stage knew the girl's name. What should she do? She would be exposed. By then, the others were already giving out their names. From the left to the right in the first row, Chang Xi and Fan Yifeng Zhang Danlan. The girls in the first row soon finished giving their names, and it was the second row's turn. However, Feng Wu still didn't know who she was supposed to be. Her back was already soaked with sweat under her clothes. Feng Wu wanted to ask around to find out the girl's name, but she couldn't do it when Feng Sun's attention was fixed on them. An idea struck her, when it was going to be her turn soon. She stepped on the foot of the girl in front of her. You Shueka, what did you do that for? The girl in the front turned around and glared at Feng Wu. She realized that Yu Shueka seemed to have a smaller face tonight, and wondered if she was seeing things. The girl in front of Feng Wu was called Yu Yu, and she was a little curious. However, with young Lord Feng still around, she didn't dare ask further questions. She quickly turned back around and resumed her position. What were you talking about? Feng Sun stared at Yu Yu. Yu Yu was so nervous that she stammered. She stepped on my foot so. If Feng Sun had pressed Yu Yu and asked her if she felt something was out of place, Yu Yu would have told him. But he didn't. He only stared at those in the second row. Soon, it was Feng Wu's turn. Feng Wu stuck out her chest. Yu Shueka. She didn't know what the real Yu Shueka sounded like, so she deliberately made her voice husky. Feng Wu was able to keep her cover, and she felt like giving herself a thumbs up. Her identity had stayed hidden, and Feng Wu was able to make another narrow escape. Brother, what's wrong? Mu the Sixth looked at Feng Sun in bewilderment. Why do you look like you're looking for a fugitive? Feng Sun smirked. That's exactly what I'm looking for. When I find her, I'll skin her alive and drink her blood. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. Luckily, after another look around, Feng Sun still couldn't find Feng Wu. In the end, he had no choice but to leave the stage. Feng Wu heaved a sigh of relief. If one were to look closer, they would see that Feng Wu had sweat all over her back, which had almost soaked through her clothes. Just when Feng Wu thought she was out of the woods, there was the sound of a dog barking from the front door. All heads turned to the door. Those were some fierce growls. Feng Wu stared at the dog that had just entered the door. Chapter 1084, Ha 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 ha. Chapter 1084 Ha 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 ha. One look and Feng Wu narrowed her eyes dangerously. It didn't look good. The dog was covered in glossy, fine black fur, and was as tall as 2 meters. Its appearance was very intimidating. It was a type of detection dog, which was highly sensitive to scents. Feng Wu was immediately alarmed. She was going to be discovered. She was sure of it. Since she was standing in the back row, Feng Wu was able to stealthily move backward when all eyes were on the front door. She might never get a better opportunity than this one. After backing away 10 steps, Feng Wu turned to run. The dog had made such a grand entrance that no one noticed that Feng Wu had gone. Only that. Arf! 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 The giant dog exploded in a fit of barking. It had been on a leash, but at that moment it charged out, as fast as a streak of lightning. Following the dog's direction, Feng Sun saw the back of someone wearing a light pink dress. He remembered that person. She was the fifth girl in the second row on stage. He grabbed you. That person behind you. What did you tell her? Frightened by Feng Sun, Yu shivered. Even her voice trembled. I didn't tell her anything. Speak. She just accidentally stepped on my foot. So I asked Fu Shueka what she did that for. Hearing that, Feng Sun looked like he had just been slapped hard. He could almost feel the pain in his cheek. It had to be her. The girl knew how to change her face, and she could easily pretend to be someone else. But she didn't know the name of the girl she was impersonating. The thought of him being so close to catching the girl just then made Feng Sun want to punch someone. By then, Xianyi had dashed out like a shooting arrow. Go! Feng Sun roared, then charged out. He was cursing loudly in his head. That girl was so smart. She was able to hide herself among the dancers, and she danced so well. She danced as well as the others, and one couldn't tell the difference. Did she really not practice beforehand? At the same moment, Feng Wu. Her face had never looked this grim and dark before. Xianyi was already running after her. If he was by himself, Feng Wu still had the confidence to evade him the way she had evaded Feng Sun. However, that sharp-nosed dog was really making things impossible. Feng Wu had studied the area when she was up on the building, and knew that there was a river just outside the east wall. She didn't like the idea of jumping into a river in such a cold season, but she was out of ideas. Plop! Feng Wu jumped onto the 20-meter wall, then flew down like an eagle with its wings spread out. Feng Sun arrived to see the person that he was chasing jump into the water. He smirked. Out of all the paths, you just chose the one that would lead to your doom. I got you, ugly girl. Standing high up on the wall and looking at the dark river, Feng Sun laughed loudly with his hands on his waist. Yes, there was a river on this side, and there were no guards. But Feng Sun had made it that way deliberately. It was like closing up the three sides of a square and leaving a single side open, and that side was the trap. That was why Feng Sun laughed when he saw the ugly girl jump into the water. The dog was going to jump in after her, but Feng Sun stopped it. Chapter 1085, Catch Her. Chapter 1085, Catch Her. Don't worry. I've got a net charged with thunder energy in the river. She's not going anywhere. Xianyi darted a look at Feng Sun. Feng Sun didn't feel like laughing anymore. That look Xianyi gave him made him feel like an idiot. I don't see anything. Xianyi glanced at Feng Sun. Feng Sun said, the thunder net can stun a person unconscious. The girl jumped in on her own, and should have been stunned by now. It's only normal that you don't hear anything. Xianyi asked, really? Feng Sun said earnestly, yes. Xianyi rubbed his chin. What if I told you that she's already gotten away? Feng Sun looked baffled. I begged Boss Jun to give me that net, and you know how resilient it is. It's as precious as a mortar restraining rope. How is she supposed to have gotten away? Xianyi narrowed his eyes. But he really couldn't sense the girl anywhere. Feng Sun said grumpily. If that's the case, get her out of there already. I can't wait to see her real face. After having been tricked by the girl so many times, Feng Sun felt so satisfied at finally catching her. The net had been laid out all over the bottom of the river. When it was gathered together, it was no bigger than an adult's fist. However, when spread out, it could cover as large an area as one wanted. Its greatest advantage was that it could be spread out or compressed according to the width of the river. Feng Sun didn't let other people do it, but drew the net in himself. He looked increasingly pleased as more of the net was drawn out of the water. Ugly girl, I'd like to see what you can do once you're in my hands. But soon, the smile vanished from Feng Sun's face. The net was out of the water, and plenty of small fish were hopping around on the finger-thin threads. However, where was she? The smile froze on Feng Sun's face. Where was she? Where is she? After gathering the net, Feng Sun saw that a hole big enough for a teenage girl to pass through had been opened up in the net. Feng Sun and Xianyi exchanged surprised looks. Feng Sun stamped about in a frenzy. How's that even possible? That's a thunder net, and it's as capable as a mortal restraining rope. How can someone break out of it? Is she a loach or something? How can she be so slippery? Xianyi glanced at Feng Sun, wanting to tell the latter that he had told him so. The guy just wouldn't listen, and had missed his best chance. That's not right. Feng Sun took Xianyi's hand. The net is unbreakable and it's charged. How did she break it? That's not the most important question now. You should really focus on finding her. Xianyi gave Feng Sun a sympathetic look. Back in Frozen Forest, Feng Sun had been deceived the worst, which was why Xianyi could understand his grudge. Feng Sun gritted his teeth, but had to accept the truth. He clenched his fists in frustration. She had to have escaped by water. You lot, follow the river downstream and catch her. That ugly girl couldn't stay in the water forever. When she hit the shore, she was bound to leave traces. Feng Sun had the dog sniff the air and find the direction that the ugly girl had fled in. But the dog only shook its head. It dove into the river, stayed for a long while at the bottom, then resurfaced and ran in the opposite direction. That girl, Feng Sun snorted. Luckily, he had the dog with him. Otherwise, the girl would have tricked him again. Feng Sun swore that when he caught the girl, he would teach her a lesson. He would tie her up so that she wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Chapter 1086, Smart Little Feng Wu. Chapter 1086, Smart Little Feng Wu. The dog swam fast in the water. Feng Sun and Xianyi were running fast along both banks of the river. At the same moment, Feng Wu. She had sensed the thunder net the moment she dove in. But there was no way out, and she could only move forward. Because turning around would surely get her caught. But she might have a chance if she kept moving forward. At that thought, Feng Wu dashed forward at full speed. In the process, Feng Wu realized that although the thunder net was called a net, it was made from the same material as a mortal restraining rope. Before, Chang San had tied Feng Wu up with a mortal restraining rope, and Feng Wu had thrown a tantrum at Jun Linyuan for that. But Feng Wu had also asked Jun Linyuan how to untie the rope, for she didn't want to be trapped in such a passive and hopeless situation again. Maybe Jun Linyuan had sympathized with her, for he actually taught her. At that thought, Feng Wu smiled. Feng Wu had the ice and fire attributes, and ice and water shared a common origin. Therefore, she was at home in the water. With the method Jun Linyuan taught her, she made a hole in the thunder net, then turned around and waved Feng Sun goodbye. At that moment, Feng Sun was guffawing at the water with his hands on his waist. Swimming as swiftly as a fish, Feng Wu fled through the hole to her freedom. She went on swimming fast underwater. She only resurfaced several hundreds of meters away, when she heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, she turned around to find Feng Sun pulling the net out. No! Feng Wu's stomach lurched. After Feng Sun took the net in, he would soon realize that she was gone. Soon, they would start another round of pursuit, and she had only bought herself less than 5 minutes. Run! The water would slow Feng Wu down greatly. Therefore, Feng Wu jumped ashore after seeing some thick grass. She quickly washed the makeup off her face, then changed into a teenage boy's outfit. Having been in the water for a while, the smell on Feng Wu had become even fainter. Even that sharp-nosed dog would have a difficult time sniffing Feng Wu out, not to mention Feng Sun himself. After putting on boy's clothes, Feng Wu erased all traces, then headed for the city's busy area. After that entire drama, morning had already arrived. Common people in the imperial capital got up early. The sun had just risen, but the farmers from the outskirts were already filing into the city, carrying loads of vegetables on their shoulders. Feng Wu wore an outfit made from coarse cloth. She handed an old farmer some silver when she spotted the latter. "Grandpa, how about this silver for all your vegetables?" Feng Wu had deliberately deepened her voice, so that she sounded like a teenage boy whose voice was changing. The old man was more than happy to oblige. He wouldn't be able to sell all these vegetables for 100 bronze coins, but was now getting silver, which was worth 2,000 bronze coins for them. What a sweet deal. The old man nodded repeatedly. Sure. Carrying the load on her shoulders, Feng Wu hid herself among the rest of the vegetable sellers, then followed them to the market. After blending in, she was a lost target to Feng Sun, who had finally arrived. Feng Sun could only stare at his dog. "Your turn." The dog gave him an aggrieved look. More and more people were pouring into the street, and that special scent was getting fainter. The dog looked around in bewilderment. Feng Sun was so anxious. He had gotten unbelievably lucky this time. If the girl changed the way she looked again, he wouldn't know how to find her next time. Where was Boss Jun anyway? Why hadn't he arrived? If he were here. Chapter 1087, Catching Feng Wu. Chapter 1087, Catching Feng Wu. Feng Sun stomped his foot in frustration. Just then, the dog charged out in another direction at an incredible speed. It headed for the food market. Feng Wu had thought that the dog wouldn't be able to pick up the scent anymore, but as it turned out, she was wrong. She frowned. Meanwhile, the running dog had already frightened a lot of people. Out of the way. Everyone out of the way. The dog forced its way through, not caring about the crowd at all. It ended up knocking a lot of people off their feet. Its eyes were flickering red, and it kept its gaze on Feng Wu, as if it was going to jump her the next moment. Meanwhile, Feng Sun and Xianyi were right behind the dog. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder. Further ahead was the food market, where the crowd was even denser. Without thinking, she threw her baskets at the dog, then took off. Only after Feng Wu fled did Feng Sun realize who the dog had been chasing. He had never expected that the ugly girl could. Was she a born actress? How did she become a teenage vegetable vendor in such a short time? Feng Sun said to Xianyi, "If I hadn't thrown that stink bug at her, we might have never found her." Xianyi nodded in agreement. That was a very impressive girl. With their current capabilities and power, together with their guards and a sharp-nosed dog, they were still unable to catch her. That was proof enough of how stealthy she was. I have to catch her this time. Feng Sun made up his mind. Feng Wu made her way through the crowd like a nimble fish, checking herself for the remaining scent as she ran. Without the scent, Feng Sun would never be able to find her. Feng Wu sniffed and found that the scent was almost gone. In less than an hour, it would disappear completely. All she had to do now was evade Feng Sun for the next hour. Everything was fine in the beginning. The street was packed with people and Feng Wu kept changing directions, making it impossible for the dog or Feng Sun to catch her. But Feng Sun wasn't dumb. He bellowed at the crowd, telling them to leave the street. Otherwise, they would be considered to have offended Northern Feng Mansion. Northern Feng Mansion? No one could afford such an accusation. Hence, everyone moved toward the sides, creating a passageway wide enough for 3 people to walk shoulder to shoulder. Feng Wu was left alone on the street, and was spotted right away. "Go!" Feng Sun and Xianyi dashed off at top speed. Feng Wu turned around to see that those two were almost upon her. She took off right away, as if she was sliding on ice. However, the next second, Feng Sun leapt up and struck Feng Wu in the back with his fist. Feng Wu stumbled forward, blood spurting out of her mouth. She couldn't stop coughing. Immediately after that, Feng Sun put a foot on her back. "Ugly girl, there you are. You won't get away this time." Feng Wu felt like screaming. Feng Sun had stomped on her so hard that she almost fainted. Seeing that Feng Wu wasn't speaking, Feng Sun snorted. He then picked Feng Wu up, so that she could face him. His usually handsome face had a bone-chilling look on it. He stared at Feng Wu with a malicious grin on his face. "I'd like to see you run now." Chapter 1088. Young Lord Feng has snatched a teenage boy. Chapter 1088. Young Lord Feng has snatched a teenage boy. Feng Sun picked Feng Wu up, and their faces were only inches apart. Feng Sun glared at the ugly girl. There were so many questions he wanted to ask her, and he desperately wanted to teach her a lesson. However, he turned around to find a large crowd around them. Moreover, they were all watching the two of them curiously. Feng Sun didn't want to make a scene in public, and he snorted. "Let's go back." He would wait until he was back at Northern Feng Mansion. By then, Feng Wu had already brought Feng Sun's horse over. It was a tall, mighty-looking horse that was taller than Feng Wu. Feng Wui had thought that Feng Sun would leave her to one of his underlings. As a matter of fact, that was what Feng Wui suggested. "My lord, how about I take this ugly girl?" Feng Sun only snorted at him. "Are you going to take responsibility if she goes missing?" Feng Wui was rendered speechless. He bowed then backed away. Feng Wu was sorry to hear that. If Feng Wui had stood his ground, she would stand a much better chance of escaping if she was handed over to Feng Wui. Turning his head, Feng Sun saw the look on the ugly girl's face, and he smacked her on the head. "Are you thinking of running away? You'll never get the chance as long as you're alive." Heh. Feng Sun then recalled all the painstaking effort he had gone through to catch this girl. He hadn't gotten any sleep the night before. As he spoke, Feng Sun lifted Feng Wu onto the back of his big horse. Hiya! The horse ran so fast that the wind blew into Feng Wu's mouth. She couldn't help but cough, and went on coughing. This Feng Sun. Feng Wu was never the type to eat humble pie. She still held a grudge toward Feng Sun for stepping on her back. Hence, help me. Young Lord Feng is taking me, an innocent boy, against my will. Xianyi was on a horse behind Feng Sun, and heard everything. Even someone as stern as him couldn't help but crack, to say nothing of Feng Sun, the man in question. Right now Feng Sun's face had gone purple. Taking an innocent boy against his will. That was as bad as snatching a woman off the street. This abominable girl. Feng Sun wanted to smack the girl's head into a pancake. To make it worse, there were so many people here, and everywhere he turned he saw a large crowd. They didn't dare to look up at him, but stole glances out of the corners of their eyes, as if he wouldn't notice. Feng Sun could imagine what they would say after he was gone. Infuriated, Feng Sun threatened them. "Spread baseless rumors and I'll cut your heads off." Feng Wu was about to start acting again, when Feng Sun threw a dirty look at her. "One more word and I'll strangle you right here." Seeing that Feng Sun meant it, Feng Wu cringed and swallowed the rest of her sentence as she stared at Feng Sun. Hiya! The tall horses disappeared at the other end of the street. Feng Wu turned back to look at the gossiping commoners, finding it quite amusing. "Smile again and I'll strangle you," Feng Sun warned her in a threatening voice. Feng Wu asked in bewilderment, "My lord, you do know what they're talking about, don't you?" Feng Sun said, "Shut up." Feng Wu said, You could have explained yourself to them just then. Why didn't you?" Feng Sun said, "Huh." Feng Wu said, "I mean it. They were so shocked because they thought I was a boy. You could have taken my hat off. That way, I would have been a girl again." Chapter 1089. The Young Lord Likes Boys. Chapter 1089. The Young Lord Likes Boys. Feng Sun looked shocked. She was right. Why didn't he think of that just then? Those people had to be gossiping behind his back now, saying that he was into boys. "So you worry about what other people say about you too. Do you want to take me back there and explain yourself?" Feng Wu spoke quietly behind his back. Feng Sun. He wondered where this annoying girl came from. Why could she set him off as soon as she opened her mouth? He was so mad. Seeing that Feng Sun had really lost his temper, Feng Wu was pleased. However, realizing that after he took her to Northern Feng Mansion, he would soon uncover her real identity, Feng Wu was conflicted again. What was she supposed to do now? Just then the tiger cub, who had been staying in her ring space, stuck its head out of her sleeve, then jumped into her chest pocket. As a beast that had signed a contract with Feng Wu, the cub could communicate with Feng Wu telepathically. "What? You can?" Feng Wu cried out inwardly. The cub nodded. "Yes." Feng Wu's eyes darted around, as she tried to figure out a way to escape. Feng Sun desperately wanted to know the real identity of the ugly girl, so he rode as fast as he could. Before long, they arrived at Northern Feng Mansion. The guards outside saw that it was their young lord, and opened the gate wide to let him in. Jumping off his horse, Feng Sun walked in with Feng Wu in one hand. He was going to go back to his No Mercy Yard. As Feng Sun carried Feng Wu toward No Mercy Yard, Feng Wu was trying to figure out a way to escape. Looking over her shoulder, she saw that because Feng Sun was walking very fast, The two of them were all alone here. No Mercy Yard was right ahead of them. What happened was quicker than words could describe. Stuffing some spicy powder into her mouth, Feng Wu bit Feng Sun's wrist hard. Ah! Feng Sun screamed in pain. Involuntarily he dropped Feng Wu. Had this ugly girl gone nuts? She had bitten him. As soon as Feng Sun let go of her, Feng Wu moved backward as nimbly as a loach. Feng Sun yelled angrily, "Stop right there. Stop." Feng Wu made a face at him. Like hell she was going to stop. Feng Sun smirked. "Do you think you can run away like that? Stop." Feng Wu ignored him and ran even faster. Feng Sun was about to run after Feng Wu when he realized in surprise that he couldn't move. He looked down at his wrist. Feng Wu's teeth had left marks on him, and the wound was bleeding. A white liquid was also oozing out. What was that? Feng Sun was terrified. His head was spinning and he could see stars. He then swayed from side to side, feeling awful. That stinky girl. Feng Sun. Just then, Xianyi rushed in with his sword over his shoulder. What's wrong? Xianyi steadied Feng Sun. He had thought that nothing would go wrong after they got the girl back to Northern Feng Mansion. How could something like this happen? Go get her. Go catch that ugly girl. I'm gonna kill her. Ah. Feng Sun took a deep breath. Luckily, the dizzy feeling gradually faded and was almost gone. Looking up, Xianyi saw the dog disappear into the distance. Hence, Xianyi dashed off after the dog. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was headed for the wall. She wanted to get out of Northern Feng Mansion. But the dog wouldn't leave her alone. Chapter 1090, The Critical Moment. Chapter 1090, The Critical Moment. But she just couldn't get rid of it. At that critical moment, the tiger cub jumped out of Feng Wu's chest pocket and rushed toward the dog. Then, to Feng Wu's surprise, the palm-sized cub smashed the dog on its head with one front paw, which reminded her of a boy master disciplining his servant. That smack baffled the dog right away. Moreover, the cub had also stuck something on the dog's nose. The dog tried to bite the cub after it came back to itself. However, the cub showed its teeth at the dog and made a threatening sound. The dog had been very intimidating, but the cub was more intimidating and powerful. One had no idea what kind of heritage the cub had, but the dog was losing ground as one watched. Feng Wu looked up to find Xianyi running in her direction. An idea struck her all of a sudden. Hence, she jumped onto the wall and landed on the other side. However, she then hid herself in the branches and jumped back in. But Xianyi only saw Feng Wu jumping out and not coming back in. Therefore, when he got to the wall, he patted the dog on the head. Go get her. The dog nodded, barked, then jumped over the wall. By then, Feng Sun had finally regained his mobility and hurried over. Feng Sun, Xianyi, and the dog jumped over the wall, then began to run down the wide street. Feng Sun smacked his own head in frustration as he ran. How can I be so stupid? Why did I let my guard down? That girl is so cunning. Xianyi didn't know what to say, for he had been careless as well, thinking that nothing could go wrong after they got her back to Northern Feng Mansion. But they had underestimated the girl's brain. She had escaped even in this situation. They ran for a while before they realized that something was wrong, for the dog stood in the middle of the street and looked around in bewilderment. It looked exhausted. Feng Sun was flustered when he saw the state the dog was in. Oh God, my dear dog, you can't be ill now. I need you more than ever. Taking the dog's head in his hands, Feng Sun tried to cheer it up. You're going to break its head. Xianyi couldn't watch anymore, and pulled the dumbfounded dog away from Feng Sun. What's the matter with my dog? Feng Sun was almost in tears. The bug's scent was only temporary, and after everything the girl had done, it was barely detectable. If something happened to the dog now, oh God, Feng Sun wanted to slap himself. Xianyi rubbed the dog's nose. It's been drugged. Feng Sun. Blue veins popped on the corner of his forehead, and he looked like he was going to explode. That girl drugged me as well as the dog. How could she do that? Feng Sun almost lost his mind. Xianyi was also at a loss as to what to do. That girl was impossible to catch. He turned to Feng Sun. The most important thing now is to fix the dog as soon as possible. That way, we may still have a chance of catching that ugly girl. Otherwise, we'll lose her forever. Feng Sun smacked her head. You're right. Let's go. Xianyi asked, where to? Feng Sun said, go find little Feng Wu. Isn't she a great doctor? I bet she can help my dog. Come, let's go to the Feng clan. Chapter 1091. Boss Jun will avenge her? Chapter 1091. Boss Jun will avenge her. So far, Feng Sun and Xianyi still had no idea that the ugly girl whom they had been chasing all night, and the one that had pissed them off, was Feng Wu. Carrying the dizzy dog, Feng Sun and Xianyi rushed to the Feng clan as fast as their legs could carry them. But they were soon disappointed. What? Little Feng Wu isn't here? Feng Sun was baffled by the news. How can she not be home so early in the morning? Where did she go? Chaoga glared at him. How am I supposed to answer that? Feng Sun said, can you at least try to be nice? Resting her hands on her waist, Chaoga said, Xiao Wu isn't here. Leave or stay and wait all you want. Pardon me. After that, Chaoga spun around and marched back inside. She closed the door behind her with a thump. Hey you! Vexed, Feng Sun was about to throw a tantrum when, my lord, there was an indifferent voice. Feng Sun turned around and his eyes lit up. Wasn't that Chang-san? What are you doing here so early in the morning? Feng Sun was intrigued. Hey, I had someone deliver to you a message for Boss Jun. Did they find you? Chang-san was surprised, then smiled bitterly. My lord, I'm no longer the captain of the guard for the Crown Prince's residence. I'm working as the captain of the guard for Fallen Star Yard now. What? Feng Sun and Xianyi exchanged surprised looks. Why so sudden? Chang-san gave them a wry smile without saying anything. It was indeed unexpected. He had only been transferred the night before. Intrigued, Feng Sun decided to get to the bottom of it. Did you do something to little Feng Wu? You offended her somehow? Was that why Boss Jun avenged her? Chang-san cried out in surprise. How did you know? Feng Sun laughed. Ha 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 ha, I was right. I knew it. I can't be the only one. Ha ha ha. My lord, asked Chang-san. Feng Sun patted Chang-san on the shoulder and said in an understanding tone, little Chang-san, you need to keep your eyes wide open. Your boss Jun likes little Feng Wu too much to admit it. Offending little Feng Wu is an unforgivable crime to him. So do you understand now? Chang-san used to be half in the dark, but after Feng Sun's explanation, and connecting it to what Feng said before, he soon saw the light. He took 3 steps back to create some distance before he bowed to Feng Sun with great respect. My lord, that was enlightening. I'll never forget your great kindness. Feng Sun grumpily waved him off. It's nothing. Xianyi was the one who made me see the light. If he hadn't reminded me repeatedly, I would still be as dumb as you are now. Hey, by the way, what did you do to offend little Feng Wu? Feng Sun's eyes shone curiously. Chang-san smiled bitterly. Before he could reply, Xianyi patted Feng Sun on the shoulder. The gossip can wait. Have you forgotten our priority? Feng Sun remembered what he was here for. That was right. The most important thing now was to cure the dog and go back to hunting down the ugly girl. Feng Sun patted Chang-san on the shoulder. I'm off. See you around. Enjoy your time in Fallen Star Yard. Poor Feng Sun and Xianyi. If they had bothered to ask one more question. If Chang-san had told them that he had offended Feng Wu because of what he had done with that immortal restraining rope, the two of them might have been able to make the connection with the thunder net. Chapter 1092. Complain to Lady Northern Feng. Chapter 1092. Complain to Lady Northern Feng. However, they didn't ask, and had thus lost the most important lead. While Feng Sun was searching everywhere for Feng Wu, where was Feng Wu at the moment? Feng Sun was at Feng Wu's place, but Feng Wu was at his home. After jumping back over the wall, Feng Wu quickly made her way through the woods and ran behind some rocks. With her nimble fingers, she quickly removed all the makeup from her face, changed into her normal outfit, and came out in a pink dress. Why, isn't it Miss Feng Wu? someone said a few steps away, sounding pleasantly surprised. It was Ziyuan, Lady Northern Fang's maid. Feng Wu smiled politely. Soon, Ziyuan led Feng Wu to Lady Northern Fang's main courtyard. It was still early, and Lady Northern Feng was having breakfast. Because General Feng was stationed at the northern border all year long, and wouldn't come back for years, Lady Northern Feng usually had her breakfast alone. Xiao Wu. Seeing Feng Wu, Lady Northern Feng's eyes lit up. Feng Wu greeted Lady Northern Feng respectfully, but before she could finish, the enthusiastic Lady Northern Feng had already ushered her into a chair. Lady Northern Feng said, "It's still so early. Xiao Wu, you haven't had any breakfast, have you? Ziyuan, get me another bowl and chopsticks." Ziyuan replied with a smile, "Of course." The lady looked so lonely when she ate alone, and Ziyuan was glad to see her have some company. Taking Feng Wu's hand, Lady Northern Feng started babbling. "Why are you here so early? Has something gone wrong?" Feng Wu smiled. "Of course not. How could anything go wrong? I'm fine." Lady Northern Feng said, "If it's not you, then my brat Feng Sun has made a mess out there, hasn't he?" Feng Wu waved her hand. "How could he? Of course he hasn't. My brother's doing fine. Please don't be mad at him. You'll make yourself sick." What did she mean by he hasn't? Then don't be mad at him. And you'll make yourself sick? She was practically telling the lady that Feng Sun had made a mess. Fearing that her quick temper would frighten the girl, Lady Northern Feng bellowed at the servants outside, "Get Feng Sun's ass down here." Ziyuan went in a hurry. However, when she came back, instead of Feng Sun, she brought Steward Wang of No Mercy Yard. Lady Northern Feng's face darkened right away. "Where's Ah Sun?" Steward Wang smiled bitterly. Lady Northern Feng frowned. "Ah Sun isn't the type to ignore my order to see him. Since he's not here. He's not here, is he?" Steward Wang dropped to his knees. "He didn't come back last night. Where did he go?" Lady Northern Feng's face was livid. She knew that Feng Wu was discreet, so if the girl had come to warn her, that just proved how big a trouble Feng Sun was in. The lady's angry voice made Steward Wang tremble. "The young lord went to West Mountain to see Master Linghu. He didn't come back last night. Perhaps because he stayed there overnight?" Lady Northern Feng waved her hand. "Get the chief steward here." The chief steward arrived and explained everything. The young lord had Feng Wu take the guards out last night. They took the dog too. The dog referred to that big dog from last night. Northern Feng General found it by accident a few years back, and apart from Lady Northern Feng and the young lord, no one else dared to go near it. "Where's Feng Wu?" Lady Northern Feng bellowed. The chief steward said, "Feng Wu led a team of guards out. I think they're after someone." "After whom?" Lady Northern Feng pressed in an intimidating tone. Chapter 1093, Poor Little Feng Sun. Chapter 1093, Poor Little Feng Sun. The chief steward said, "I think they were after a good-looking teenage boy." "A teenage boy?" Lady Northern Feng was bewildered. "Why is he after a teenage boy?" Lady Northern Feng couldn't for the life of her figure it out. "Xiao Wu, just tell me, what did your brother Ah Sun do this time?" Feng Wu looked conflicted, but in fact she was thrilled inwardly. "Ha ha ha. Feng Sun, that's what you get for chasing me half the night. An eye for an eye," thought Feng Wu. Despite her excitement, Feng Wu kept her face demure and serious. "Well, it's no big deal." Lady Northern Feng threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. If that really is the case, then why did she skip breakfast and rush here at this hour? It has to be very big, thought Lady Northern Feng. "Just tell me," Lady Northern Feng prompted her. Feng Wu asked, "Do you really want to hear it?" The lady said, "I thought you were a straightforward kid. What's with this stuttering? Spit it out." Feng Wu said, "Well, actually, I'm only worried that you won't be able to handle it." Lady Northern Feng said, "Just tell me. What on earth had that brat done to make little Feng Wu so conflicted?" Leaning over, Feng Wu whispered in Lady Northern Feng's ear. She only said one sentence, but Lady Northern Feng was petrified. "What? Is that true?" Lady Northern Feng stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said. Yes. Lady Northern Feng asked. Are you telling me that your brother's son likes men? Feng Wu said. I'm not 100% sure, but he did snatch a teenage boy in public, and everyone on the street saw it. I came here in a hurry as soon as I heard. Thump. Lady Northern Feng smacked the table hard. That brat. Infuriated, Lady Northern Feng went back to her room to look for something. Godmother, what are you looking for? Feng Wu asked curiously. Lady Northern Feng snorted. That's why that brat didn't like any of the girls I set him up with. I know now. He likes men. The more she thought about it, the angrier Lady Northern Feng became. I'm Lady Northern Feng, and my only son likes men. I can't have that. Seeing how serious Lady Northern Feng was, Feng Wu nipped her fingers. Had the joke gone a little too far? Just then, footsteps came from outside. Mom, I heard that we have a guest. Is little Feng Wu here? Feng Sun's footsteps came from outside. Speak of the devil. Turning toward the door, Feng Wu had the greatest sympathy for Feng Sun, who was about to show up. Poor Feng Sun. He knew nothing of this. After learning that Feng Wu was at his place, he came home with the big dog, hoping that Feng Wu would treat his dog, so that he could go back to looking for the ugly girl. However, Feng Sun sensed the forbidding atmosphere before he set foot in the main courtyard. Wait, what was going on? As soon as Feng Sun stepped into the main courtyard, smack, the door closed behind Feng Sun with a loud bang. Feng Sun jumped. What was that about? He looked up to find Feng Wu inside, and when he was about to wave at Feng Wu to greet her, a stick as thick as his arm appeared out of nowhere and struck him in the back. Caught by surprise, Feng Sun was hit in the back. Ouch! Feng Sun cried out in surprise. He then looked up to see his mother, who was holding that stick with both hands, and looking like she wanted to kill someone. Chapter 1094, Poor Young Lord Feng. Chapter 1094, Poor Young Lord Feng. Mother. Feng Sun looked dumbfounded. He had no idea what he had done to deserve that whack from his mother. Ignoring her son's complaint, Lady Northern Feng raised the stick that was as thick as an arm, and brought it down on Feng Sun again. Mother, why are you hitting me? What did I do? Feng Sun asked in frustration. He had come back in a hurry to eat with his sister, as soon as he heard that Feng Wu was eating with his mother. The last thing he expected was a merciless beating. You brat! You're so dead today. How dare you mess around with men? Lady Northern Feng only hit him harder. Feng Sun glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu shrugged innocently. It's everywhere. You. Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu. He should have known. The girl seldom came here, but she was here so early today. She had come to tell on him. Feng Sun was so vexed. Quit staring at your sister. How dare you, Feng Sun? You're shameless. Holding the stick, Lady Northern Feng went on beating him continuously. Feng Sun's face wrinkled up. For it really hurt. I'm not messing around with men. Feng Sun yelled in frustration. Lady Northern Feng said, Stop lying. You brought a teenage boy back home. You can't deny it. Feng Sun's face turned livid. It wasn't a teenage boy. She was a teenage girl. Lady Northern Feng paused for a brief moment. Really? It was a girl. Feng Sun said, Yes, really. She was disguised as a boy. Lady Northern Feng saw the light. So you kidnapped a teenage girl and brought her back home. Feng Sun. Seeing that Feng Sun was incriminating himself more and more with his explanation, Feng Wu was amused. The excitement then sent her into a fit of coughing. Ahem. Luckily, she had covered her mouth with her sleeve, and Feng Sun didn't see the blood she coughed out. That abominable Feng Sun. Feng Wu had almost softened, but she was then reminded of how badly Feng Sun had hurt her, and all her guilt disappeared. Feng Sun ran around in circles in the yard as Lady Northern Feng chased him. She's a thief and outlaw. Lady Northern Feng was much more capable than Feng Sun. There was no way he could run away from her. Lady Northern Feng snorted. You kidnap her then call her a thief? Little Feng Sun, since when did you become so glib? The false accusation almost made Feng Sun cry. Mom, I'm telling the truth. That thief stole Boss June's immortal spiritual fruit. Otherwise, Bao Er would be well enough to walk by now. She's wanted by Boss June. Lady Northern Feng wouldn't be convinced if Feng Sun had brought up someone else, but he would never lie about June Lin Yuan. Lady Northern Feng was still hesitating when, "My lady, something's wrong." Steward Feng walked in. Lady Northern Feng asked, "What's wrong?" Steward Feng said, "Someone's crying and shouting outside, saying that the young lord has taken their young master. They've put out a banner, and are sitting down outside our front gate. There are a lot of them, and they're making a lot of noise." Lady Northern Feng glared at Feng Sun with eyes that could kill. Feng Sun was dumbfounded. That's impossible. That teenage boy was that ugly girl in disguise. There was no way that the girl's family knew she had been caught. Moreover, even if they did, they wouldn't be asking for their young master back, for she was a girl. Lady Northern Feng was furious. "Impossible or not, you brought the problem home, you take care of it." Chapter 1095. Does everyone know? Chapter 1095. Does everyone know? After that, Lady Northern Feng tossed the stick aside, then stormed off into the house. Feng Sun put the dog down next to Feng Wu. "Please cure this dog for me. I still need it to find that ugly girl." After that, Feng Sun rushed out. How dare these people try to slander him? They had some balls. Feng Sun walked off in vexation, and the air around him seemed to be on fire. He would vent the anger he had received from Lady Northern Feng on these people. Feng Wu watched as Feng Sun left. She then looked at the dog, then stared at Feng Sun from behind with a strange look on her face. There was a saying, sending a sheep into a tiger's mouth. Had he just sent the dog into her hands? If Feng Sun knew that the ugly girl he was desperately trying to find was Feng Wu herself, Feng Wu shuddered at the thought. He must never know, otherwise Feng Sun would probably lose his mind. "Godmother, please don't be mad. My brother is." Seeing how miserable she had made Feng Sun, Feng Wu decided to put in a good word for him. However, Lady Northern Feng cut her off before she could finish. "You don't need to cover for him. He made this mess, he's going to take care of it himself." Lady Northern Feng smacked the table angrily. She then turned to Feng Wu. "Is everyone really talking about Feng Sun liking men?" Feng Wu said, "Well." Lady Northern Feng rubbed her forehead. "I can't bring myself to show my face anymore. Everyone knows about it. That's just. Granny Tao turned down all invitations this week. I'm going to stay indoors like a turtle." Granny Tao smiled bitterly. "Well, the others won't be a problem, but the old master of the Xianyuan family is celebrating his birthday." The Xianyuan clan was one of the 9 major clans, and everyone had to attend the birthday celebration event for their old master. Even Northern Feng Mansion had to acquiesce. The Xianyuan clan. Feng Wu's heart skipped a beat when she heard the name. If she remembered correctly, Old Master Xianyuan had leads on the 2nd Broken Star piece. The Feng clan was too inferior in the imperial capital to attend the Xianyuan clan's big event. Even if they could go, Lady Wang would never bring Feng Wu with her. But now, an idea struck Feng Wu, and she took Lady Northern Feng's hand. "Godmother, do you need me to attend for you?" "Wait." Lady Northern Feng's eyes lit up. That was right. She didn't want to go out, but Xiao Wu could go. The news of her being Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter had already gotten around, and all the top officials of the empire knew about it. Old Master Xianyuan should know as well. Elated, Lady Northern Feng had Granny Tao go and find a present in the storage room. Just then heavy footsteps came from outside. Lady Northern Feng didn't have to guess to know who it was. It was indeed Feng Sun. Disgruntled, Feng Sun sat down on a stool. Feng Wu immediately poured him a cup of tea, acting all docile and obedient. "Thank you, sister." Feng Sun enjoyed the attention a lot, finding his sister gentle and caring. Feng Wu thought to herself, "If you find out that I'm behind all this, you'll probably want to throttle me again." "Brother, what's with all the crying and shouting out there?" Seeing that Lady Northern Feng was sulking silently, but was obviously eager to hear the news, Feng Wu immediately asked the question. The mention of that made Feng Sun's face twist. He was furious. Thump. Thumping his fist on the table, he said, "That bastard Zhuqinglu. He's holding a grudge against me for what happened with Miss Fingqi. And he cooked up this scene just to make fun of me. I'll beat him to a pulp when I have some spare time." Chapter 1096, When Feng Wu Comes Out. Chapter 1096, When Feng Wu Comes Out. Zhuqinglu was behind this. Feng Wu smiled a little. That guy was anything but decent. It seemed that she had done the right thing, putting a price on Zhuqinglu's head the night before. "Hey, what's that?" Feng Sun glanced at the invitation in Feng Wu's hand. "It's for old Master Xuanyuan's birthday," said Feng Wu with a smile. "He's one of the 7 bosses of Imperial College, and I can make use of this rare opportunity." "Really?" Feng Sun darted a suspicious glance at his sister. Other people had adorable, doll-like baby sisters, but he had one whose head was filled with wicked ideas. She was smart, witty and cunning, and would never resign herself to defeat. Why did she want to visit old Master Xuanyuan? Did she have a secret agenda or something? At that thought, Feng Sun looked Feng Wu up and down suspiciously. Could she really have no other plans? Feng Wu threw a dirty look at him. "Of course. What other plans can I possibly have? I'm the loveliest girl." Feng Sun replied with a heh. Since when would a lovely girl skip breakfast to tell on her brother? Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Ahem. That was because. Feng Wu then threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. That was because you were being indiscreet. Don't you agree? Feng Sun smacked the table and rose to his feet. "You stinky girl." However, Lady Northern Feng smacked him on the head before he could finish. "How dare you talk to your sister like that?" Feng Sun said. "But she." Lady Northern Feng smacked him again. "You're supposed to dote on your baby sister. Is that your idea of doting on her?" Feng Sun gave Lady Northern Feng an aggrieved look. So, now that his mother had a daughter, he had become the forgotten son. "Wait, the dog." Smacking the table, Feng Sun finally remembered this important piece of information. Feng Wu gave him a baffled look. Feng Sun was on edge. "Didn't I give you the dog before I left? Please don't tell me that you've lost it." Feng Wu pointed to a corner a few steps away. There, a big dark brown dog with glossy fur was lying on its back, fast asleep, its belly rising and falling with its breathing. Feng Sun was anxious. How can it sleep? Rushing over, Feng Sun shook the dog's head. "Dog, wake up. Dog." However, no matter how hard Feng Sun shook or how loudly he roared, the dog showed no signs of waking up. Frustrated, Feng Sun turned to Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu looked perfectly innocent. "Didn't you tell me to cure it? How am I supposed to do that if I don't drug it?" Feng Sun was rendered speechless. If Feng Sun learned the truth, Feng Wu shuddered. He must never know. He could never find out that she was the ugly girl he was looking for. Poor Feng Sun. He had no choice but to swallow the humiliation silently under the suppression of the 2 women. The Xuanyuan clan birthday celebration was in the evening, so Feng Wu and Lady Northern Feng started their preparations after afternoon tea. Feng Wu knew that she wasn't there for fun, but to carry out a plan. Therefore, she wanted to keep a low profile. But Lady Northern Feng didn't think that way. She believed that her stunning goddaughter didn't get the attention she deserved. Not to mention that they kept calling her failure Wu. The lady couldn't stand it. Therefore, Lady Northern Feng wanted to make Feng Wu as pretty as possible. In the end, Feng Wu had no choice but to give in to Lady Northern Feng's efforts to dress her up. 2 hours later, Feng Wu came out of the room. Chapter 1097, Going to the Party. 1097 Going to the Party. OMG. Lady Northern Feng, Granny Tao, and the others all cried out in surprise. The girl looked stunning. Her fair skin was translucent like snow and her features were exquisite. The light makeup gave her a more mature look. Her neck was slender and fair. The line of her shoulders was smooth, and her waist was so tiny that one could hold it with one hand. The floaty lower hem of her dress moved like water as she walked, and she was almost too dazzling to watch. Stunning. Everyone held their breaths and looked at Feng Wu with wide-open eyes. Even Lady Northern Feng was stunned. A girl as beautiful as her would astonish everyone at the party as soon as she showed her face. The banquet at the Xianyuan family. Because of the banquet, it was a boisterous scene at the Xianyuan family house. Guests poured into the manor in waves, and there was an uninterrupted flow of carriages and horses. Feng Wu arrived in the Northern Feng Mansion carriage. Northern Feng Mansion was one of the most prestigious families in the empire. So as soon as the carriage stopped outside the house, it was immediately greeted by someone from the Xianyuan family. The second branch of the clan was in charge of greeting guests tonight. Xianyuan Yu and his wife, Lady Yu, were waiting at the front gate. The couple went up to the carriage with an ingratiating smile, ready to say hello to Lady Northern Feng. To their surprise, a young but stunning woman came out of the carriage. And why did this young woman somehow look familiar? Xianyuan Yu and Lady Yu exchanged bewildered looks. Luckily, Lady Yu recognized Granny Tao, for the latter was always by Lady Northern Feng's side. Granny Tao greeted Xianyuan Yu and Lady Yu, then explained in an enthusiastic tone. Her ladyship isn't feeling well today, and she's staying at home as requested by the doctor, who said that she isn't fit enough to walk around. This is Miss Feng Wu, her ladyship's newly adopted goddaughter. Feng Wu was here to play the fair maiden today, so she greeted the couple with her knees bent. What a pretty young lady. Feng Wu left a good first impression on Lady Yu, who found her pretty, demure and docile. I can tell that she's a good girl right away. Please come in. Banquets of other families were divided into male and female sections at most, but the Xianyuan clan. The guests were divided into senior and junior groups. Feng Wu was taken into the banquet hall on the left. She walked in to find an empty dance floor on the left, while the area to her right was filled with oval-shaped dining tables, as well as a scattering of cushioned chairs. It had been arranged in this way, so that the guests could gather in small groups and have some fun among themselves. Looking around, Feng Wu saw only young men and women, some of whom she already knew. Feng Wu frowned. She was here for the big boss, Old Master Xianyuan, and had no interest in these youngsters. And from past experiences, rather than a birthday party for an old man, this was more like a venue for young people to hit on one another. Feng Wu turned to leave the room, but, "Little Feng Wu, is that you?" A familiar voice rang out behind her. Feng Wu turned around to find Ning Chenxi behind her. "Hey, it's you." Seeing a familiar face in a strange place was like running into someone from your hometown. Feng Wu couldn't help but smile at him. Ning Chenxi had never been looked at by Feng Wu like that before, and his fair cheeks soon turned pink. Recalling how he had mistaken Feng Lu for Feng Wu, he looked even more abashed. However, seeing how natural and graceful Feng Wu was, Ning Chenxi also suppressed his feelings and forced himself to calm down. He went up to Feng Wu and smiled at her. "Why are you here alone? Didn't your family come with you?" Chapter 1098, A Group Attack. Chapter 1098, A Group Attack. Feng Wu asked, "My family?" Ning Chenxi said, "Yes. I saw Lady Wang with Feng Lu when I arrived, but you weren't with them." Feng Wu said, "Well, that's true. I didn't come here with them." Standing in a not-so-remote corner, Feng Wu and Ning Chenxi chatted casually. He was a tall, handsome boy, and she was a stunning girl with an ethereal beauty. Although Feng Wu had her back to the crowd, many were still drooling over her wonderful silhouette. They couldn't keep their eyes off her. The truth was that this was an occasion set up for the influential family's third generation to find potential spouses. Feng Wu turned out to be an unexpected opponent, which gave the other girls a lot of pressure. "Who's that?" A pretty teenage girl in the center of the crowd was surrounded by other girls her age. She was none other than Xianyuan Ying, the favorite granddaughter of the Xianyuan clan, and the sister of Xianyuan Yi. She was surrounded by quite a few people, some of whom were Feng Wu's old acquaintances, such as Feng Lu, Feng Sang, Zui Qingyu. The girl who asked the question was called Duga Yamo, and she was a prominent figure herself, for she was from the Duga clan, which was also Empress Duga's clan. Hearing her question, everyone turned their heads, following her gaze. In the secluded corner, Ning Chensi was blushing and flustered, and one couldn't miss the excited look on his face. His eyes were twinkling, as if he had just found the most precious treasure. "Wait, isn't that Ning Chensi?" Zhuo Qingyu cried out. She then nudged Feng Lu with her elbow. "Didn't he used to like you? I heard that he swore that he would marry you and you alone." Girls had a thing for gossip, so right away, the others joined in, teasing Feng Lu. Dugu Yamo was especially enthusiastic. "Yes, that's right. I heard about that too. Feng Lu, why are the two of you still not married?" Feng Lu was embarrassed. Could she tell them that Ning Chensi had mistaken her for someone else? Could she admit that Ning Chensi had wanted to marry Feng Wu all along, and he had only made the silly mistake because of what she said? Feng Lu was already an inferior member of this group, and was only able to attend this banquet because she knew Xian Yuaning. Feng Lu smiled bitterly. "There was nothing between me and Ning Chensi ever." "Please," snapped Zhuo Qingyu. The Ning family asked quite a few influential people to propose the marriage to the Feng clan. "They almost asked for my dad's help, and I know everything. Why is he all over another girl now?" Dugu Yamo said. "Don't tell me that. Ning Chensi was stolen by another woman?" Who more could Feng Lu say? She didn't need to say anything, and could just cover her mouth with a wry smile on her face. The others would make up the rest of the story that fitted their speculations. As expected, seeing Feng Lu's reaction, Zhuo Qingyu was indignant. "That Ning Chensi, he was all over you and couldn't wait to marry you. I thought he was so sincere. He's just like every other man." Dugu Yamo was ready to play the enthusiastic onlooker. Crossing her arms, she snorted and raised her eyebrow. "Feng Lu, if I were in your place, I would never stand for it." The others chimed in. "Neither would I. Let's go have a look. I'd like to see what magic she has." Chapter 1099, How Can I Not Know Her? Chapter 1099, How Can I Not Know Her? Xian Yuaning said, "That's right. I have to know what kind of witch stole Ning Chensi's heart." Hence, led by Xian Yuaning, the most attractive girls in this banquet headed for the corner Feng Wu and Ning Chensi were sitting in. Seeing the girl's smooth outline and slender build from behind, Dugu Yamo sighed inwardly. From that back alone, she knew that the girl could defeat Feng Lu. By the way, before they got there, Zhuo Qingyu asked Feng Lu all of a sudden, "Don't you have a sister named Feng Wu? Why isn't she here?" Feng Lu smirked. "Why should she be? Who would invite her?" The others agreed. The Feng family was not what it was before. Feng Lu had only been invited because she was Xian Yuanying's friend. Who would send an unwelcome girl like Feng Wu an invitation? Zhuo Qingyu looked sorry to hear that. "I wish she were here." Xian Yuaning frowned. "You like her?" Zhuo Qingyu smiled. "As if. I was just thinking that if she did come. Haha, there are so many of us here. And we can teach her a lesson for what she did to His Royal Highness." These girls were still holding a grudge against Feng Wu for what she did to Jun Linyuan in proud Snowfield back then. Friendships could be formed in the strangest way among girls. They would quickly become very close when they had a common enemy, such as now when they all hated Feng Wu. At the same time, Ning Chensi wasn't the only man around Feng Wu for. "Hello, young lady. You look so familiar. Have we met before?" The man who went up to her was none other than the third young master of the Dugu clan, Dugu Yamo's older brother. He had been standing some distance away when he spotted Feng Wu's fine profile. Instantly, young Master Dugu was swept off his feet. He stood there befuddled, then his legs moved on their own. An invisible force pulled him toward Feng Wu. Ning Chensi frowned when he saw Dugu Mingxi. The Empress was from the Dugu clan, and even the Zhuo clan had to depend on it. It was a colossus in the imperial capital. The way Dugu Mingxi looked at Feng Wu was like a beast eyeing its prey. His eyes were glittering. Ning Chensi felt the threat right away. However, the girls arrived before he could say anything. Dugu Yamo frowned when she saw her brother, but she still smiled. "Hey, what's going on? Why is everyone here?" These young people were all excellent members of their generation, both in terms of their social status and their cultivation skills. That was why all eyes had been on them the entire time. Since they had all gathered in the corner, the attention followed them there as well. Sensing the eyes on her, Feng Wu turned her head involuntarily. Oh God! Wow! SSSS. Duga Mengshi stared at the girl in disbelief. How could anyone be this beautiful? Holy shit! As for the sound of indrawn breaths, they all came from the girls who had come here to fight for justice for Feng Lu. Little did Feng Lu expect to find Feng Wu here. She was just telling everyone confidently that Feng Wu wouldn't be allowed in. Why are you here? Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. Moreover, she was furious. She had thought that she could show off in front of Feng Wu after receiving the invitation from the Xianyuan family. But the latter was here as well. Chapter 1100 Show the Invitation. Chapter 1100 Show the Invitation. Do you know each other? Duga Mingxi glanced at Feng Lu. Duga Mingxi knew Feng Lu because of his sister. Feng Lu snorted. Of course I know her. She's Feng Wu, the one who took advantage of the unconscious crown prince and kissed him. Feng Wu. Duga Mingxi hadn't met Feng Wu before, but he had heard of her famous name. Therefore, he frowned as soon as he heard that. He shook his head and wouldn't believe her. This young lady is as noble as an immortal. How could she have done such a wretched thing? No, that can't be the case. Feng Lu almost exploded. However, Duga Mingxi was a prominent figure. The Empress was from the Duga family, which was far more influential than even the Zhou family. Who was Feng Lu to speak back to him? As a result, Feng Lu could only vent her anger on Feng Wu. She asked, "How did you get in? Who brought you here?" Ning Chenxi frowned. This Feng Lu was awful. Luckily, he had uncovered the truth quickly enough, or his life would have been ruined. Feng Wu only smiled but didn't speak. Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu, wondering if the latter thought she could cope with the situation by keeping silent. Of course, Feng Lu wouldn't let that happen. Feng Lu believed that she had someone to back her up. Taking Xianyuan Ying's arm, she said, "Sistering, did the Xianyuan family invite Feng Wu?" Xianyuan Ying gave Feng Wu a condescending look. She knew about Feng Wu not just because of what happened between the latter and Jun Lin Yuan, but also because her brother had come back from school the other day in a grumpy mood. When she asked, she learned that Feng Wu had been pushing her brother around at school. Xianyuan Ying had a brother complex. To her, nothing was more important than Xianyuan Yi, her brother. That was why Feng Wu had left a bad impression on Xianyuan Ying from the very beginning. Looking down her nose, she stared at Feng Wu arrogantly. "How did you get in?" Feng Wu smiled. "With an invitation, of course." "Where is it?" Xianyuan Ying stretched out one hand, gesturing at Feng Wu to show it to her. Instantly, all eyes were on Feng Wu. Upper-class families like the Xianyuan family seldom humiliated people in public like this. However, bolstered by her own special status, as well as that of her friends around her, Xianyuan Ying decided right away that she wouldn't show Feng Wu any respect. Feng Wu frowned. She had come with an invitation, but Granny Tao had it at the moment. It wasn't appropriate for Granny Tao to step into the main hall of a banquet like this. Seeing the frown on Feng Wu's face, Xianyuan Ying thought that she had a guilty conscience. Her eyes flickered and she pursed her lips contemptuously. She raised a hand to beckon someone over. Steward Yen. Steward Yen was in charge of the banquet venue. Hearing her call, he went up to her immediately. Xianyuan Ying asked with a stern look on her face. "Steward Yen, you were in charge of sending out the invitations, weren't you?" Steward Yen said, "Yes, Mississippi." Xianyuan Ying said, "Go find out why she was allowed in." Looking at Feng Wu, Steward Yen frowned. "And who is this young lady?" Anyone else would have felt flustered as well as flushed with embarrassment from being stared at by so many eyes holding ill intent. But not Feng Wu. She was unperturbed, and even smiled a little. "Feng Wu is my name." "Miss Feng Wu." Tilting his head, Steward Yen gave it some thought, then looked at her in embarrassment. He hesitated but still said, "I sent out all the invitations myself, but I don't recall seeing Miss Feng Wu's name." Wow. Chapter 1101. You re not welcome here at the Xianyuan family. 1101. You re not welcome here at the Xianyuan family residence. All eyes in the hall had already turned in this direction. Not to mention that Feng Wu had been the center of all the attention all along. Therefore, nearly everyone was staring at Feng Wu, gloating at her predicament. This was going to be good. Feng Lu was even more satisfied. Feng Wu had it coming. A duckling couldn't turn into a swan, just because she wanted to. In her dreams. Xianyuaning, you've stepped out of line. An angry voice rang out from behind Xianyuaning. Turning around, Xianyuaning saw that it was Gongsun Qing. Gongsun Qing was from the Gongsun family, which was also one of the 9 major clans. The two families were of equal status, but that didn't mean that Xianyuaning would necessarily listen to her. Sister Gongsun, how about you have some tea outside? I'll apologize for the convenience after I'm done here. Xianyuaning's meaning was very clear. She had told Gongsun Qing to go away and mind her own business. Gongsun Qing frowned. Xianyuaning, go easy on other people. Do you have any idea how unforgiving and aggressive you are now? That's not how the daughter of an old, distinguished family should behave. Xianyuaning snorted. So, are you saying that I should just stand here and watch while some tramp sneaks into an event held for people of our status? Sister Gongsun, this isn't your home, so of course you don't have to worry. However, I have a responsibility and obligation to make sure that all the guests can safely enjoy themselves today. Gongsun Qing found those words preposterous. She was just standing there and talking. How can she possibly be endangering your safety? If you hadn't approached her, none of this would be happening. Although Gongsun Qing had held a grudge against Feng Wu before, her opinion of Feng Wu had changed after the latter saved her life. Xianyuaning decided to ignore Gongsun Qing. She stared at Feng Wu. Are you leaving or do I have to make you? That was a rather rude question. All eyes were on Feng Wu. Many people were whispering among themselves. So she's Feng Wu. The Feng clan has really declined. They were also one of the 9 major clans back in the day. I would leave right now if I were Feng Wu. Did Feng Wu not hear them? Of course she did, but that was why she couldn't leave. She smiled at Xianyuaning. Your father wrote the invitation himself. If you want me to leave, he'll have to tell me in person. My father? Xianyuaning found Feng Wu ridiculous. A petty thing like you received a handwritten invitation from my father? Who the hell do you think you are? Don't make me laugh. Feng Lu, Zhuaqingyu, Duga Yamo, and the others were all grinning at Xianyuaning. Zhuaqingyu chimed in, poking at the hornet's nest. Xianyuaning, I thought your words meant something here in the Xianyuan family. I guess I was wrong. Tsk tisk. Of course Xianyuaning wouldn't stand for that. She glared at Feng Wu, blaming everything on the latter. If it wasn't for this girl, her friends wouldn't be laughing at her. At that thought, Xianyuaning reached out to grab Feng Wu. Get out. Now. You're not welcome here in the Xianyuan family. Feng Wu chuckled. She sounded like she was enjoying herself. Actually, the Xianyuan family had left an awful impression on her. She had felt a little guilty about approaching Old Master Xianyuan with a hidden agenda, but with the scene Xianyuaning had caused, Feng Wu felt justified. The Xianyuan family owed her now. Just then. Chapter 1102. What is her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Chapter 1102. What is her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Stop. A cold voice rang out a few steps away. All heads turned in that direction. The newcomers were none other than Xianyuan Yu and his wife, whom Feng Wu met at the gate earlier. It was Xianyuan Yu and Lady Yu. Uncle? Aunt? Xianyuaning frowned when she saw the couple. Her second uncle and his wife were both talented cultivators, whom Old Master Xianyuan thought of highly. If it wasn't for the fact that the couple still didn't have any children at their age, Xianyuan Yu might very well be the next clan chief. Despite her displeasure, it seemed that Xianyuaning still respected them. Uncle, Aunt, this is the area for youngsters. How about the two of you leave us an aisle? Xianyuan Yu glared at Xianyuaning. If I leave it to you, The Xianyuan clan will become a laughingstock of the imperial capital. You're dismissed. What a harsh tone. Xianyuan, you had always been a stern man. With that serious look in his eyes and his dark face, he looked very intimidating. The bellow made Xianyuan burst into tears. Turning her head, she gave Xianyuan, her own brother, a pleading, aggrieved look. Since this area was for the youngsters, Xianyuan was bound to be here. However, he had been playing the bystander from the very start, watching in silence as Feng Wu was mocked and teased. He acted as if none of it was his business. However, when he saw Xianyuan getting scolded by a senior, he frowned. Uncle, you too. Quiet. Xianyuan's tone was very harsh, and his gaze was sharper than a blade. How could he not be harsh? Miss Feng Wu here might be a neglected daughter of the Feng family, but she was Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter, and was backed by Northern Feng Mansion. That was enough for the Xianyuan family to show her the highest respect. Lady Yu went up to Feng Wu and took her hand with a cordial smile. Miss Feng Wu, I'm sorry for startling you. It's all our fault. Please forgive our rudeness. She then turned to glare at Xianyuan. Apologize to Miss Feng Wu now. Apologize? For what? Xianyuan couldn't stand it anymore. Grinding her teeth, she glared at Lady Yu. Aunt, why are you on her side? She's the one without an invitation. Lady Yu smirked. How do you know she doesn't have one? Xianyuan turned to glare at Steward Yan. Steward Yan was frustrated. The last thing he wanted was to get involved in this strife, but now that things had come to this point, he had no choice. My lady, it's true. Miss Feng Wu doesn't have an invitation. Staring at Xianyuan, Lady Yu said. At the very least, even if she didn't have an invitation, what you did was still inappropriate. You're the daughter of one of the 9 major clans. You should never be so reckless and unforgiving. Do you have any idea who you've just offended? Unconvinced, Xianyuan turned her face away. Lady Yu then had someone bring Granny Tao here. Hearing that her mistress had been mistreated, Granny Tao was flustered. She arrived at the scene in a hurry. Miss Wu. Granny Tao took Feng Wu's hand, still not recovered from the initial shock. Is someone giving you a hard time? How dare they? How dare they pick on the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion? Who is it? Show your face. Granny Tao represented Northern Feng Mansion, the unparalleled family among the most prominent ones. Northern Feng General was in charge of a great army, and was a formidable cultivator himself. Who would be bold enough to offend his family? The idea was unthinkable. The mention of Northern Feng Mansion made everyone stare at Feng Wu in astonishment. Who was this girl to Northern Feng Mansion? Feng Lu, on the other hand, was struck with realization right away. Chapter 1103, Refused to Give In. Chapter 1103, Refused to Give In. That was. Feng Lu recalled when Lady Northern Feng went to Feng Manor before and visited Fallen Star Yard herself, declaring that she would have Feng Wu as her goddaughter. Back then, Feng Lu didn't think it would happen, but now, around her, a lot of people were murmuring among themselves. Did all of you hear that? Feng Wu is related to Northern Feng Mansion. Hey, do you think she's here on behalf of Northern Feng Mansion? What do you think is her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Is it possible that she's going to marry young Lord Feng? Bah! Young Lord Feng is phenomenal. That petty girl isn't good enough for him. Could she be a concubine Lady Northern Feng prepared for her husband? Lady Northern Feng must have lost her mind to do that, finding her husband a new lover. So, exactly what is Feng Wu's relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? They weren't the only ones intrigued, so were Xianyuan and her friends. What's your relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Xianyuan pointed at Feng Wu. But there was the sound of a crack. A hand struck down hard. Granny Tao had smashed down on Xianyuan's outstretched hand. Granny Tao had been with Lady Northern Feng for many years. She used to work in the Imperial Palace, and had served Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Everywhere she went, she was treated with respect. Common folk might not know who Granny Tao was, but the upper-class circle was well aware of her identity. Xianyuan included. Granny Tao used to work as a disciplinary maid in the imperial palace, and when she put on a stern face, she could look quite intimidating. How dare you hit me? Xian Yuaning glared at Granny Tao. Granny Tao snorted. She's the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion, not someone you can pick on. Because of the unexpected quarrel, Xian Yuanzhe and Lady Kai, who had been in the hall next door, came over in a hurry. They arrived to find Granny Tao glowering at Xian Yuaning, and the latter about to talk back. Seeing this, Lady Kai was alarmed. She rushed over and grabbed Xian Yuaning by the arm. Xian Yuaning saw her family arrive, and felt even more aggrieved. Holding Lady Kai's hand, she said, Mum, they're all picking on me. Lady Kai almost rolled her eyes at her daughter. She had already been told what happened here before she came. Someone picked on her? Xian Yuaning not picking on them would be a blessing. At that thought, Lady Kai threw a dirty look at Xian Yuaning. Shut your mouth. Mum sobbed. Feeling that she had been humiliated in front of her friends, Xian Yuaning was aggrieved. Granny Tao couldn't care less about Xian Yuaning's tears. Her mistress had just been mistreated, and she wouldn't stand for it. Lady Kai, you've seen what happened. Are you going to do something about it? Lady Kai tried to defuse the situation. Granny Tao, they're just kids and are bound to have some minor conflicts. Let's just leave it to them. They'll probably make up after a while. We elders might complicate things further if we get involved. Don't you think so? Lady Kai was willing to show Granny Tao due respect, but Granny Tao was a maid, after all, and not Lady Northern Feng herself. Therefore, Lady Kai didn't think she had to pay too much attention to the old maid. Granny Tao found her words ridiculous. So, that's the verdict of the Xian Yuan family. You're just going to drop it. Lady Kai smiled. It's not a big deal anyway. Granny Tao, you really shouldn't be bothered too much by it. There. Everyone, please go back to what you were doing. There's nothing to see here. Chapter 1104. That S-Boss June's Girl. Chapter 1104. That S-Boss June's Girl. Granny Tao smirked. Lady Kai, if that's what you think, I hope you're powerful enough to withstand the fury of Lady Northern Feng. Lady Kai smiled. Granny Tao, you're making fun of me. But in fact, Lady Kai didn't think much of what Granny Tao said. That was because she thought that if Lady Northern Feng really thought highly of this goddaughter, she would have thrown a party for the event, instead of keeping it a secret. What was more, if Lady Northern Feng really deemed this goddaughter so important, why would she stay at home and only send Granny Tao here with the girl? Lady Kai drew her conclusion from this speculation. She believed that even if this Feng Wu really was Lady Northern Feng's goddaughter, she wasn't all that important to the lady. Meanwhile, in Northern Feng Mansion, no one had noticed one of the teenagers, who was also at the party. He had been at Perching Phoenix the night before. It was none other than Mu the Sixth. After losing Miss Fengqi, Mu the Sixth's family had hustled him here, so that he could find a suitable woman at this event, held by the Xian Yuan family for the younger generation. He was neither too high nor too low in social status, and got along well with the others, and had been enjoying himself. But what he hadn't expected was to find Feng Wu here, let alone see her getting laughed at. To Mu the Sixth, Miss Feng Wu was Brother Feng the Third's responsibility, and he didn't think he was superior enough to offer her any protection. Hence, he turned around and headed out. Mu the Sixth reached Northern Feng Mansion in no time. No mercy yard. Brother, help. Feng Sun was in a foul mood at the moment. He had finally run into that ugly girl, and had been so close to catching her, but he let her slip through his fingers. Feng Sun was infuriated. Feng Sun was so mad that he pounded his bed with his fists. He was so mad. That was why when Mu the Sixth ran into the yard, he saw Feng Sun roaring into empty air, which baffled Mu the Sixth. Brother. Mu the Sixth bit his lower lip. Turning around, Feng Sun saw Mu the Sixth and looked embarrassed. Clearing his throat to try and cover up his embarrassment, he glared at Mu the Sixth. What are you doing here? Mu the Sixth cringed a little. Brother Feng seemed to be in a bad mood, and Mu the Sixth wondered if telling the latter what happened was a bad idea. Should he just drop it? Maybe Feng Wu was nothing to his brother Feng now. Hadn't Feng Sun found a new target the night before? At that thought, Mu the Sixth slowly backed away and turned to run. Intrigued, Feng Sun yelled after him, "Stop." Mu the Sixth did as told right away. What's that about? Standing up from his bed in vexation, Feng Sun stared at Mu the Sixth, displeased. Well that. Mu the Sixth scratched his head. Brother, are you still interested in little Feng Wu? Feng Sun threw a dirty look at Mu the Sixth. Shut up. She was his boss Jun's woman. What Mu the Sixth said could get Feng Sun in trouble. Mu the Sixth thought he knew what was going on right away, so he smiled. Brother Feng, that Feng Wu is in a lot of trouble. The Xianyuan family is giving her a hard time, and she's so doomed. What? Feng Sun grabbed Mu the Sixth. What happened? Mu the Sixth was confused. He didn't understand why his brother Feng would look so grave and said in a hurry. Feng Wu went to the party held by the Xianyuan family, but Xianyuan caught her, saying that she didn't have an invitation. It just so happened that Feng Wu couldn't produce one, and right now a lot of people are. Before Mu the Sixth could finish, Feng Sun shot out like a bolt of lightning. Brother Feng. Left behind on his own, Mu the Sixth stood there, looking baffled. Chapter 1105. A high-handed announcement. Chapter 1105. A high-handed announcement. Lady Northern Feng was taking a walk in the garden, and when she heard the noise, she asked in surprise. Mu the Sixth, what are you doing here? Why did your brother jump out like a monkey? Lady Northern Feng actually seldom saw Feng Sun move that fast. Mu the Sixth looked bewildered and said in an innocent voice, I have no idea. I thought my brother lost interest in little Feng Wu, but when I told him that little Feng Wu was being bullied at the Xianyuan manor. What? The next second, Lady Northern Feng grabbed Mu the Sixth by his collar and almost lifted him off the ground. What did you just say? Xiao Wu is being bullied at the Xianyuan place. It surprised Mu the Sixth to see the people of Northern Feng Mansion all react so extremely to what happened, and he mumbled, Yes, those people in the Xianyuan manor are picking on her now. How dare they? Lady Northern Feng was furious. They're all saying that little Feng Wu doesn't have an invitation and doesn't have the right to set foot in the Xianyuan manor. Mu the Sixth added in a hurry when he saw that Lady Northern Feng looked like she was going to eat someone alive. Thump. Infuriated, Lady Northern Feng smacked a stone tablet next to her. Thud. The stone tablet broke into pieces right away. How dare that Xianyuan family pick on the daughter of Northern Feng Mansion? Fine. We'll see about that. Lady Northern Feng rushed out in a rage. Meanwhile at the Xianyuan manor, little did Lady Kai know that two formidable members of Northern Feng Mansion were headed her way. She only smiled at Granny Tao. They're just kids and they bicker. Granny Tao, please don't take it too seriously. After that, she glared at Xianyuan. Apologize to Sister Feng Wu now. Xianyuan was reluctant and pursed her lips. Sister? Who the hell does she think she is? Her voice was not much louder than a whisper, but was loud enough for everyone to hear. Granny Tao flared up immediately. She stared at Lady Kai. Fine. Is that how the Xianyuan family is going to treat Northern Feng Mansion? I'll make sure that her ladyship hears about this. Every single word of it. Granny Tao was so mad that she had forgotten to use respectful address. Lady Kai held Granny Tao's arm immediately and smiled at the latter. Granny Tao, I'm afraid I can't agree with you. The Xianyuan family has never intentionally disrespected Northern Feng Mansion in any way. No one noticed that a tall figure had rushed into the hall at that moment. Xianyuan was still snorting. Her? Represent Northern Feng Mansion? Who the hell does she think she is? She's my sister. A cold, affirmative voice rang out behind everyone. The crowd all turned their heads involuntarily. Feng Sun marched in through the crowd and stopped in front of Feng Wu. He was known to the others as a lively yet rebellious teenager, but right now, he was colder than ice as he stood there. He looked as overbearing as Jun Lin Yuan, a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. His face was cold and ruthless. Whoever he looked at lowered their heads. Feng Wu stood on Feng Sun's left. Reaching out with his long arm, he held Feng Wu's right hand up and let out an intimidating sound of rage. He announced loudly, "She's my sister. Anyone have a problem with that? Speak up." What a high-handed announcement. Many girls in the hall felt their hearts pick up speed. Before, they had found Feng Wu pitiful for being taunted in public like this. They thought that if it were them, they would have fled the scene already. Chapter 1106, Sorry Brother Feng Sun. Chapter 1106, Sorry Brother Feng Sun. But, when young Lord Feng took Feng Wu's hand and announced in that overbearing manner that she was his sister, and dared anyone who had a problem with it to say something, they swore they had butterflies in their stomachs. However, those teenage girls weren't the only ones here. There were also girls like Xianyuaning, Zuoqingyu, and Dugu Yamo, who thought very highly of themselves. Zuoqingyu pursed her lips and mumbled, "I didn't know Feng Wu could pull that off. Feng Sun is so supportive of her. Xiaoing, forget it. Just let it drop. Feng Sun can be very scary." Xianyuaning knew Feng Sun could be scary, but it was as Zuoqingyu had said. If she backed off now, she would lose face for good. She's the daughter of the Feng family. What's her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion? Xianyuaning snorted unconvinced. Feng Sun stared at Xianyuaning with cold, cruel eyes and smiled wickedly. "You got a problem with that?" "Of course I do." Xianyuaning believed that she was safe in her own territory and was confident of her capability. Moreover, according to her mother, the Xianyuan family was going to propose a marriage contract with Lady Northern Feng, marrying her to young Lord Feng. Needless to say, Xianyuaning couldn't agree with the idea more. After all, Feng Sun was an excellent teenager. However, he was protecting a girl that wasn't related to him by blood. Not to mention that Xianyuaning hated that girl. For that alone, Xianyuaning would never allow this to pass. The side of a spoiled daughter took hold, and she flared up. "Yes, I have a problem. Feng Sun, I'm warning you, if you still want the marriage between our families to happen, let go of her hand right now." "What marriage?" Everyone looked dumbfounded. Lady Kai wanted to smack her stupid daughter's head. The marriage proposal was still being discussed among the members of the Xianyuan family, and Northern Feng Mansion hadn't been informed yet. But not only had the girl revealed it in public, she even tried to threaten him with it. Lady Kai felt her head hurt. Feng Sun was even more dumbfounded. "What marriage?" Xianyuaning smirked. "The marriage between us." Feng Sun was so mad that he broke into laughter. "What marriage between us? Are you dreaming?" Xianyuaning was astonished. The anger sent her into tears. Mother, he won't acknowledge it." Feng Sun was rendered speechless. Lady Kai didn't know what to do. To her surprise, Xianyuaning charged at Feng Wu and tried to slap the latter. Feng Wu was lost in thought at that moment. She was feeling very guilty toward Feng Sun. She had only just tricked Feng Sun, and the next thing she knew, he was in front of her, as unwavering as a real brother, and trying to protect her. Feng Wu clenched her fists. "Sorry about this, Brother Feng Sun." That was why when Xianyuaning tried to slap Feng Wu, the latter didn't react in time, for her mind had wandered off. What happened next was quicker than words could describe. Pushing Feng Wu behind him, Feng Sun slapped Xianyuaning hard with the back of his hand. Smack! It was loud and clear. Almost everyone opened their eyes wide in disbelief. He was in the Xianyuan family's territory. And Xianyuaning was the favorite daughter of the family. And they were discussing marrying her to Feng Sun. This was such a humiliation to the Xianyuan family. Xianyuaning wasn't the only one dumbfounded by the slap. The rest of the Xianyuan family all looked astonished as well. Xianyuaning broke into tears right away. Lady Kai glared at Feng Sun. "Young Lord Feng, what do you think you're doing?" Chapter 1107. Aren't you worried that Jun Linyuan will kill you? Chapter 1107. Aren't you worried that Jun Linyuan will kill you? Lady Kai wasn't the only one who was furious. The other members of the Xianyuan family were all giving him threatening looks too. Xianyuan even stepped forward and glared at Feng Sun. "Young Lord Feng, you're out of line." Xianyuan Yi was Xianyuan Ying's brother, while Feng Sun was Feng Wu's. At that moment, the two brothers glowered at each other, a storm brewing in their eyes. Feng Sun looked like he was ready to kill. "She was picking on my sister. She should have seen revenge coming." Xianyuan Ying was so mad that she almost fainted. But in the end, this was the Xianyuan family's territory, and a lot of the senior members of the family were here. Xianyuan Ying had just been slapped in public, and naturally, someone was going to intervene. Such as Xianyuan Zhe, the next chief of the Xianyuan clan, and the father of Xianyuan Ying and Xianyuan Yi. Xianyuan Zhe had a serious look on his face. "Young Lord Feng, you should be more discreet, for the sake of the long-term friendship between our families." Young Lord Feng smirked. "Ah, Master Xianyuan Zhe, what do you mean by discreet?" Xianyuan Zhe frowned. "You can go, but she has to stay." People of the Xianyuan family had already surrounded the place. That was to say, they planned to take action against Feng Sun. Feng Sun found these people preposterous. As if humiliating his sister in public wasn't enough, before he was done avenging her, these people were threatening him. "Nice job, Xianyuan family. What if I say no?" Feng Sun grinned. Xianyuan Zhe smiled maliciously. "If that's the case, I'm afraid young Lord Feng will have to personally apologize to the Xianyuan family." Feng Sun said, "Is that so? Enlighten me. What kind of apology are you asking for?" Xianyuan Zhe said, "That's easy. Slap yourself to make up for the humiliation you've given the Xianyuan family." Xianyuan Zhe meant it. Feng Sun was so mad that he laughed. That was ridiculous. Just then, four masters in black of the Xianyuan family appeared behind Feng Sun all of a sudden and took hold of his arms. Xianyuan Zhe smiled wickedly. "Young Lord Feng, who's going to be slapped? You or your sister?" This Xianyuan Zhe was so arrogant. Feng Sun narrowed his eyes in a threatening manner. No, Xianyuan Zhe had always been bold but not this arrogant. For him to dare to humiliate Northern Feng Mansion like this now, Feng Sun wondered what had emboldened the guy. But Feng Sun couldn't figure it out no matter what. Xianyuan Zhe gave him a sinister grin. "I see. Young Lord Feng is going to let your sister take it. I get it. Your face is much more precious." As he spoke, Xianyuan Zhe tipped Steward Yan, who was next to him, the wink. Steward Yan went up to Feng Wu and smiled wickedly at her. "Sorry about this, Miss Feng Wu." After that, Steward Yan raised his arm. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes in an intimidating way. Did these people take her for a good-for-nothing? They thought they could abuse her verbally and physically just like this. "Stop it." Feng Sun was flustered. Apart from being his sister, Feng Wu was also the girl Boss Jun was in love with. If Boss Jun knew, Feng Sun couldn't begin to imagine what would happen then. "How dare you touch her? His Royal Highness will kill you." Feng Sun roared as he gritted his teeth. His Royal Highness? What did His Royal Highness have to do with this? Everyone gave Feng Sun strange looks. Doesn't His Royal Highness dislike Feng Wu the most? I heard that His Royal Highness only picked on Feng Wu in Imperial College. I also heard that. Chapter 1108. Is this girl even human? Chapter 1108. Is this girl even human? However, Steward Yin still raised his hand. Anyway, Feng Sun was the only one here who believed that Jun Linyuan would get angry for what happened to Feng Wu, let alone lash out at the Xianyuan family. Before Steward Yen could do anything to Feng Wu, she smirked, then raised her hand and grabbed Steward Yan's palm. Whoosh! Everything happened so fast, and before they knew it, Feng Wu had twisted Steward Yan's arm. Ah! Steward Yan screamed like a pig being slaughtered. His shrill voice was through the roof. Everyone looked at Feng Wu in astonishment. This couldn't be happening. Steward Yan had been subdued. Isn't Feng Wu just a level 4 spiritual grandmaster? That's right. Some appraisal master evaluated her before, and said she was a level 4 spiritual grandmaster at most. But then how did she stop Steward Yan? She broke his arm with one move. It wasn't just the onlookers. Even Feng Sun was astonished. No one in the Xianyuan family and Zhou family saw that coming. How could they not be shocked? Xiao Wu Yu. Before Feng Sun could finish his sentence, Steward Yin came back to himself and thought he had underestimated the girl. In order not to lose face in front of his master, Steward Yin jumped up, suddenly took a dagger out of his sleeve, and slashed at Feng Wu's throat. It was so fast. And it was a move aimed at killing her. Xiao Wu, watch out. Blue veins popped on Feng Sun's forehead, but he was held down and couldn't move at all. Everyone only saw a flash. The blade of the dagger glinted, and then, thud. The next second, Steward Yan's dagger slashed down at his own throat. Whoosh! Blood gushed out of the wound. Everyone opened their eyes wide and stared in disbelief. OMG! Feng Wu has. Steward Yan is. Feng Wu's initial outburst of strength had astonished them. Then she cut Steward Yan's throat with one lethal strike. She shocked the others with both her capability and her determination. Xianyuaning touched her throat involuntarily. That was so terrifying. If she had been the one trying to slap Feng Wu, and had drawn a dagger on the latter, Xianyuaning couldn't begin to imagine what would happen. How dare you? After coming back to herself, Xianyuaning stared at Feng Wu in disbelief, and the rage in her eyes was like an erupting volcano. Feng Wu, how dare you do that? Hey, take the murderer down. By then the others had time to react too. Feng Wu was so quick. Is she really a level 4 spiritual grandmaster? Are you kidding me? From that outburst of her spiritual essence, she's a level 6 spiritual grandmaster at least. No, she's more than that. She can't be less than level 7. Why do I feel that she's a level 8? Everyone began to discuss it among themselves, but couldn't reach a conclusion. That was so. If Feng Wu was really as capable as they guessed, the speed of her progress was unbelievable. Everyone shook their heads, unwilling to believe it. Over on one side, Zhou Qingyu and Zhou Qinglu exchanged alarmed looks. That girl had risen again. Was that girl even human? We can't let her live anymore, Zhou Qingyu said to Zhou Qinglu in a lowered voice. Chapter 1109. The Fierce Lady Northern Feng. Chapter 1109. The Fierce Lady Northern Feng. Zhou Qinglu nodded discreetly. He was among those who had destroyed Feng Wu's ability. He knew that if that damn girl rose again, she would definitely take revenge. That was why Feng Wu had to die. Those of the Xianyuan family were the first to charge at Feng Wu. Xianyuaning had been slapped by Feng Sun, and Steward Yan had been killed by Feng Wu. Since they were still in the Xianyuan family's territory, of course the family would try to settle the score. Feng Wu could be a spiritual grandmaster at level 6, 7 or 8. It made no difference to these people. Kill her. Xianyuanzhe gave the order. As the successor of the Xianyuan family, that was how arrogant he was. Instantly, 2 figures in black flew at Feng Wu like eagles with their wings spread out. They were about to send out lethal strikes. Stop. Someone arrived with rage like a tidal wave. And everyone turned to look. OMG. It was Lady Northern Feng. And she didn't come alone. The 18 Iron Knights in black were behind her. The 18 Iron Knights in black were the fiercest and most formidable guards of Northern Feng Mansion. Every single one of them was a powerful cultivator. All 18 of them were capable enough to be generals, yet they worked as nothing more than the guards of Northern Feng Mansion. More importantly, the 18 knights were a gift from Her Majesty the Empress Dowager, and His Majesty the Emperor, when Lady Northern Feng married Northern Feng General. When Lady Northern Feng went out, she would take at least 2 knights with her, and never more than 4. But now she had brought all 18 of them here. Mother! Feng Sun was excited to see Lady Northern Feng. And he was reassured when he saw the 18 Iron Knights. Lady Northern Feng nodded at Feng Sun and Feng Wu, then turned her attention to Xianyuanzhe. Rushing over to Xianyuanzhe in a threatening manner, Lady Northern Feng shoved him in the chest. Master Xianyuan, how bold of you! Did you just try to kill my Xiao Wu? How dare you? Lady Northern Feng was known for her ferocity, and everyone in the imperial capital was aware of her irascible temper. As soon as she arrived, every member of the Xinyuan family felt a shadow over their heads. Poor Xinyuanze, the father of Xinyuan Yi. He was caught off guard when the furious Lady Northern Feng shoved him, and he took a step back. Cough cough. Xinyuanze choked a little and started coughing. Next to him, Lady Kai was flustered. Master, are you all right? Lady Kai said anxiously. Putting a hand over his chest, Xinyuanze waved. If a little push like that could hurt him, he would be useless. Seeing that her husband was unharmed, Lady Kai turned to glare at Lady Northern Feng. At the end of the day, this was an upper-crust party, and everyone was as courteous as noble men and women should be. However, Lady Northern Feng had assumed such an aggressive posture, as if she was going to denounce someone for their crimes. Lady Northern Feng, be civil. What you're doing is so inappropriate. Lady Kai found Lady Northern Feng's behavior unacceptable. Lady Northern Feng was furious. Did these people think she had no idea what the couple had done? She had already been informed on her way here. Lady Northern Feng shoved Lady Kai. Lady Kai was nowhere near as capable as Xinyuanze, and at Lady Northern Feng's push she fell back. Behind her was a row of wine shelves. Thump! No matter how quickly Lady Kai could dodge, she couldn't stop herself from crashing into the wine shelves. She fell to the ground along with broken wine bottles. Her clothes stuck to her back, drenched with wine, and her hair dripped with the sticky liquid. She looked a mess. Chapter 11:10 Lady Kai. Chapter 11:10 Lady Kai. Lady Kai thought she was going to lose her mind. God, she was a lady from a famous family, and had never been humiliated like this before. After several people helped her to her feet, Lady Kai glared at Lady Northern Feng. You've crossed the line. With her hands on her waist, Lady Northern Feng acted all tough. You bullied my Xiao Wu. That's why I pushed you. What? You have a problem with that? She was so fierce. Everyone had held their breaths since Lady Northern Feng showed up, and no one dared to intervene. Lady Kai wasn't alone. Next to her, Mrs. Wu couldn't help but interject. Lady Northern Feng, don't you think you've crossed the line? With her hands on her waist, Lady Northern Feng threw a dirty look at Mrs. Zhua. Do you have a problem then? Mrs. Zhua was speechless. All she did was murmur a little, and the woman turned on her. The Zhua family enjoyed a high status in the imperial capital, but deep down, Mrs. Zhua was still afraid of Lady Northern Feng. Gritting her teeth, she said, I do have a problem. You've done the wrong thing. Can't we point that out? Lady Northern Feng went up to Mrs. Zhua, grabbed the latter's hand, and dragged her out from behind Lady Kai. She looked like she was picking up a chicken. But it was Mrs. Zhua, a noble lady of the Zhua family. It wasn't just the Zhua family. Everyone else in the hall also watched this in astonishment. Lady Northern Feng was so intimidating. Grabbed by Lady Northern Feng, Mrs. Zhua was utterly flustered. She yelled, What are you doing? Put me down. How could someone be so unbridled and presumptuous? After living her life as a respectable lady, Mrs. Zhua never expected to deal with someone so unruly and unreasonable. Putting Mrs. Zhua down on the ground, Lady Northern Feng shoved the ladder and made her stumble. Tell me, what's your problem with me? Mrs. Zhua was intimidated. Lady Northern Feng shoved her again. Say it. Mrs. Zhua hated Lady Northern Feng, but the latter had taken control of the situation in her overbearing manner, and Mrs. Zhua didn't dare utter a word. What did my Xiao Wu do? Are you proud of picking on her? Speak. Lady Northern Feng said in an aggressive manner. That was so fierce. Lady Northern Feng was so fierce. But she was the prestigious Lady Northern Feng, and her status meant a lot. Since she was a favorite of Her Majesty the Empress Dowager, no one dared to offend her. Mrs. Zhua stumbled back a few steps at Lady Northern Feng's push, but didn't dare to say a word after that. Before Mrs. Zhua spoke earlier, several other ladies had tried to play up to Lady Kai by tackling Lady Northern Feng. But now, Almost everyone here realized that this Lady Northern Feng was a lunatic who didn't play by the book. She was domineering and puffed up with inordinate arrogance. Anyone who opposed her would be annihilated. Since no one wanted to become cannon fodder, no one dared to step out again. Lady Northern Feng looked at each face in turn, but no one dared to meet her eyes. They all looked elsewhere, their eyes darting away. Lady Northern Feng snorted and looked at Lady Kai again. Did you want to kick my Xiao Wu out just then? Apologize. Now. If Feng Sun had been very arrogant before, Lady Northern Feng acted like an invincible queen. Lady Kai almost fainted with rage. The Xianyuan clan was one of the 9 major clans, and Northern Feng Mansion was the most prominent noble family. The two families were of similar social status, but at that moment, Lady Kai was steadily losing ground to Lady Northern Feng. Chapter 11:11. She's never the type to suffer a loss. Chapter 11:11. She's never the type to suffer a loss. Lady Kai wept in a pitiful manner and gripped Xianyuan Zai's arm with both hands helplessly. Master! However, Xianyuan Zai only had time to pat Lady Kai's hand. Before he could say anything, Xianyuaning stepped forward. Watching on the side, the girl was furious. Lady Northern Feng was behaving atrociously in the Xianyuan family's territory, which was an insult to the extreme. Lady Northern Feng, that's enough. Xianyuaning glared at Lady Northern Feng with her chest stuck out. I was the one who cursed Feng Wu and tried to kick her out. If you want to take it out on someone, take it out on me, not my mother. Yes, she had called Feng Wu names. So what? Xianyuaning said it herself. What kind of person was Lady Northern Feng? She was never the type to suffer a loss. Hence, the next moment. Smack! Lady Northern Feng slapped Xianyuaning right in the face. That crisp sound. Everyone stared at Lady Northern Feng with a strange look in their eyes. She had really hit the girl. Xianyuaning was dumbfounded as well. She hadn't expected Lady Northern Feng to be so savage and absurd. You hit me. How dare you? Xianyuaning pointed at Lady Northern Feng. Lady Northern Feng slapped her again, and it was as loud as the first time. Yes, I did. She exerted a lot more strength this time, and Xianyuaning flew backward at the impact. Lady Northern Feng. The Xianyuan family members couldn't tolerate it anymore. This was the Xianyuan family's territory, and the lady was practically slapping the face of the entire family. Is Northern Feng Mansion declaring war against the Xianyuan clan now? Xianyuan Zai's face turned livid as he stood there, with a stern look in his eyes. His face was so dark that it looked like a stormy sky. Although there were a lot of onlookers, no one dared to make a sound. Because no one knew what word would set them off and start a war between Northern Feng Mansion and the Xianyuan clan. Lady Northern Feng smirked. The Xianyuan family insulted Northern Feng Mansion first. And you're saying that I'm trying to start a war? Fine. Bring it on. Like that's gonna scare me at all. Lady Northern Feng slapped her palm down hard on a table. It was instantly pulverized. Xianyuan Zai's face turned livid. You, Lady Northern Feng said. Let's have a war. Come on. Xianyuan Yu, Xianyuan Zai's brother, stepped out to defuse the situation right away. Lady Northern Feng, please don't be mad. It was just children bickering, and nothing that serious. Let's talk, for we're all reasonable people, aren't we? As Xianyuan Yu spoke, he gave Xianyuan Zai an inconspicuous tug, and shot the latter a warning glance. Have you forgotten what kind of family Northern Feng Mansion is? Do you not know Lady Northern Feng's background? That family is too powerful for the Xianyuan clan to mess with now. Xianyuan Zai snorted and looked away. By now, Feng Wu couldn't just stand around anymore. She couldn't just watch as Northern Feng Mansion and the Xianyuan family went to war. Feng Wu said, Mother, please calm down. You'll upset yourself. I'm fine. That mother caught the attention of everyone present. So, Feng Wu really was the goddaughter of Lady Northern Feng. Taking Feng Wu's hand, Lady Northern Feng said to her with a serious and stern look on her face, Honey, there's no need to say any more. You're my most precious daughter. You don't have to compromise out of consideration for me and silently swallow humiliation like this. Keep your chin up. That's all you have to do. Feng Wu was speechless. All right then. A lot of people at the banquet were looking at Feng Wu with mixed feelings. There was astonishment in their eyes, but more than anything else, there was jealousy. That was especially the case with people like Xian Yuanying, Zhuo Qingyu, and their friends. As it turned out, Feng Wu really was Lady Northern Feng's daughter, and the favorite one. Chapter 11:12 Aunt. Chapter 11:12 Aunt. Xian Yuanying's heart sank. She recalled what she said to Feng Wu earlier, which consisted of some very rude things. Lady Northern Feng was so intimidating. When that woman wanted things her way, she didn't give a damn who she had to take down. Of course people were afraid of her. Lady Northern Feng glared at Xian Yuanying. Do you still remember what you said just then? Xian Yuanying gave Lady Kai a pleading look. Lady Kai wanted to help her own daughter, but it was obvious that Lady Northern Feng was here to get revenge for Feng Wu. And even Lady Kai was intimidated by Lady Northern Feng's demeanor. Although Xian Yuanying was asking for her help, Lady Kai still looked away. Lady Northern Feng smirked. The Xian Yuan manor is so hard to get in these days. Even a member of my Northern Feng mansion can get kicked out right away. Both Xian Yuan's and Lady Kai's faces darkened. Xian Yuan, you came to their rescue. Lady Northern Feng, it was a misunderstanding, a huge misunderstanding. Ing Er didn't mean it. After that, Xian Yuan, you shot Xian Yuan, in an inconspicuous warning glance. Apologize to Miss Feng now. Why should she apologize? A cold voice interjected just then. Aunt. Xian Yuanying's eyes lit up when she saw who it was. It was none other than Xian Yuan Shuiyue, the daughter of the Xian Yuan family, who had married out. Xian Yuan Shuiyue had never been on friendly terms with Lady Northern Feng, for she could have married the Northern Feng general, but in the end, the man married Lady Northern Feng instead. For that, Xian Yuan Shuiyue still hated Lady Northern Feng. She had known that Lady Northern Feng was here the moment the latter arrived, and had come over just to make Lady Northern Feng's life harder. Oh my, I was just wondering who it was. Isn't it our famous Lady Northern Feng? Xian Yuan Shuiyue walked in at an elegant pace, then darted a sidelong glance at Lady Northern Feng. Aunt. Holding Xian Yuan Shuiyue's arm, Xian Yuanying cried in grievance. Xian Yuan Shuiyue stroked Xian Yuanying's hair. Good girl. What happened? Tell me. I'll back you up. Aunt. Xian Yuanying said between broken sobs. Lady Northern Feng wasn't here at first and Feng Wu came on her own. All I did was ask her if she had an invitation. What was wrong with that? If she didn't have one, she shouldn't be here, right? Xian Yuanying went on crying. She never told me her relationship with Northern Feng Mansion, and Northern Feng Mansion never announced that Feng Wu was a member of their family. As Xian Yuanying cried, she made sure to give excuses for her conduct. She had done nothing wrong and shouldn't be blamed. It was everyone else's fault. She was the most innocent person on earth. It just so happened that she had a point. Northern Feng Mansion had indeed never made the announcement that Feng Wu was a daughter of the family. Seeing the baffled look on Lady Northern Feng's face, Xian Yuan Shuiyue was excited. Lady Northern Feng Mansion should be the one to blame. You're the only one to make that claim, and we have no way of knowing if it's the truth. You can say whatever you like. Xian Yuan Shuiyue snorted. So my family did nothing wrong here. Lady Northern Feng was going to say something when Xian Yuan Shuiyue cut her off. Lady Northern Feng, you brought an army here, as if you're going to execute someone. That aggressive manner is just way too arrogant. That outright insults the Xian Yuan clan. Other members of the Xian Yuan clan chimed in. Yes, you've humiliated our clan. Xian Yuan Shuiyue stared at Lady Northern Feng. I'm afraid you'll have to give us an explanation, or there will be consequences. We can go to His Majesty if you want. I'd like to see which side His Majesty will take, his family or the truth. Chapter 1113 Princess Feng Wu? Chapter 1113 Princess Feng Wu. Hearing that, Feng Wu frowned a little. This Xianyuan Shuiyue was quite a piece of work. Her little speech just turned what Lady Northern Feng did into the behavior of a bully, forcing Lady Northern Feng's hand. Feng Wu was about to say something, but Lady Northern Feng smirked and asked her, "Did you tell them whom you were representing when you came?" Feng Wu said, "I did." Lady Northern Feng stared at Xianyuan. Did she or didn't she? Xianyuan didn't dare meet Lady Northern Feng's eyes. Just then Mu the Sixth yelled. Little Feng Wu said it, but Xianyuan wouldn't believe her. Xianyuan wasn't the only one. No one had believed Feng Wu earlier. Seeing that things were turning in Feng Wu's favor again, Xianyuan Shuiyue's eyes darted around, then she smiled. Goddaughter or not, it's not like you threw a party or anything. How are we supposed to know? I bet even His Majesty doesn't know either. Lady Northern Feng, are you holding so many grudges against the Xianyuan clan that you made up such an excuse to attack us? Many people gave Lady Northern Feng suspicious looks after hearing that. Lady Northern Feng smirked, then drew a scroll out of her wide sleeve, which she handed to Xianyuan Shuiyue with an arrogant glance. Since all these people suspected that she was mistreating her goddaughter and was using Feng Wu to attack the Xianyuan clan, Lady Northern Feng decided to show them the evidence. These people had better open their eyes and take a good look. Xianyuan Shuiyue didn't see this coming. The next second, an imperial edict was in her hand. Didn't that light yellow color represent the empire? An imperial edict. Lady Northern Feng has an imperial edict with her. What will it say? Everyone was curious and surprised. All eyes were on the imperial edict, and everyone had forgotten to blink. They eyed Xianyuan Shuiyue, urging her with their stares to unroll the imperial edict. Xianyuan Shuiyue's mind was telling her that the scroll's content would make her look very bad. Everyone was looking, however, and she didn't have any other choice. By the grace of God and His Majesty the Emperor, it is decided that Feng Wu, the daughter of the Feng family, is destined to be Lady Northern Feng's daughter for her equal stress on integrity and ability, as well as her elegance and virtue. Feng Wu is hereby given the title Princess Feng Wu. As Xianyuan Shuiyue read on, her eyes almost popped out. It was real. His Majesty had even made Feng Wu a princess. A princess with a title wasn't the same as the other princesses out there. This was the most prodigious princess of all. It was inferior only to a royal princess. Crack! The imperial edict fell from Xianyuan Shuiyue's hands. Those around Xianyuan Shuiyue were so frightened that their hearts almost stopped. If word of this got out, the Xianyuan clan could be punished for showing the emperor grave disrespect. They would be doomed. Xianyuan Yu was standing close to Xianyuan Shuiyue. Hence, he jumped forward and caught the imperial edict just before it hit the ground. Whoosh! Only then did the other Xianyuan clansmen let out breaths of relief. Even Xianyuan Zai's forehead was covered with a thin layer of sweat. He was petrified. All the members of the Xianyuan clan who were present glared at Xianyuan Shuiyue. This woman had almost gotten the entire clan killed. Xianyuan Shuiyue wanted to cry, but no tears would come. I really didn't mean to. But no one would believe her. But Feng Wu knew she was telling the truth, because she herself had been the one behind it. When Xianyuan Shuiyue was feeling baffled just then, Feng Wu had struck and numbed Xianyuan Shuiyue's fingers a little. What a pity, Feng Wu thought to herself. Staring at Xianyuan Shuiyue, Lady Northern Feng smirked. Xianyuan Shuiyue, I didn't know that you still had so many grudges against the royal family. Chapter 1114 Xiao Wu, let us go. Chapter 1114 Xiao Wu, let us go. Before Xianyuan Shuiyue could offer an explanation, Xianyuan Yu apologized with a wry smile right away. Lady Northern Feng, it was a misunderstanding. My sister was simply careless. Please forgive her. By the way, this imperial edict is. Fearing that Lady Northern Feng would look into it, Xianyuan Yu went on proclaiming the rest of the imperial edict. Princess Feng Wu, Everyone stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. Especially Feng Lu and Feng Sang. The two of them gritted their teeth, overwhelmed with hatred. Feng Wu used to be of the same social status as the two of them, but the next thing they knew, she seemed to have grown wings, and had become Princess Feng Wu all of a sudden. From now on, she would be superior to Feng Lu and Feng Sang. Zhuo Qingyu glared at Feng Wu with eyes filled with jealousy. Xian Yuaning stared at Feng Wu with bloodshot eyes and clenched fists. Her eyes almost popped out. She had thought that even if Feng Wu became Lady Northern Fang's goddaughter, that was it. She never expected His Majesty to write an imperial edict for Feng Wu. And she was made Princess Feng Wu. She may as well be Lady Northern Fang's real daughter. Lady Northern Feng pointed at Xian Yuanzhe. What a family you've got here. You're either dropping an imperial edict, or disrespecting a princess instated by His Majesty himself. I finally see how the Xian Yuan family demonstrates its respect for the royal family. Xiao Wu, let's go. Taking Feng Wu's hand, Lady Northern Feng turned to leave. That wouldn't do. Xian Yuanzhe and Xian Yuanyu exchanged looks. Judging by Lady Northern Feng's reaction, she was going to go to court to vent her grievances. And it was common knowledge that Lady Northern Feng was very well liked by the royal family. Lady Yu reacted quickly, and stopped Lady Northern Feng in time, by taking the latter's hand. She then smiled obsequiously. Lady Northern Feng, please don't go. Wait. Xian Yuanyu blocked their way as well. It's all a misunderstanding and bickering between kids. The Xian Yuan family can't be any more loyal to His Majesty. The last thing we'd ever do is disrespect the Emperor. As Xian Yuanyu tried to stop Lady Northern Feng, he shot a warning glance at Xian Yuanzhe. Xian Yuanzhe was so frustrated. It was only moments ago that he had been standing up to Lady Northern Feng. But now, however, the royal family was simply too intimidating an entity to confront, and Xian Yuanzhe had to step up now for the sake of his entire clan. He kicked Xian Yuaning. Go apologize to Princess Feng Wu now. Poor Xian Yuaning. She was caught off guard, and the kick sent her right in front of Feng Wu. Her father had kicked her so hard that Xian Yuaning couldn't stand up straight. She kept coughing until she spat out a mouthful of blood. When that happened, people began to give Feng Wu and Lady Northern Feng strange looks. Xian Yuaning had mistreated Feng Wu, and was indeed suspected of abusing her power for personal gain. But she had only done it for the safety of everyone else of her social class. She had every reason to want to check Feng Wu's invitation. Cough cough. Xian Yuaning wouldn't stop spitting out blood, and Feng Wu could tell right away that something was off. As expected, Xian Yuaning made a very humble gesture, and lowered her head to apologize to Feng Wu. Princess Feng Wu, I've offended you repeatedly. Please forgive me. Cough. More blood spilled out of her mouth. Everyone else gave Xian Yuaning sympathetic looks at the sorry sight she made. Feng Wu gave her a half smile. Miss Xian Yuan, you seem badly wounded. Let me examine you. Her hand landed on Xian Yuaning, and it only took her an instant to discover that Xian Yuaning was pretending. The girl had smashed part of her internal organs to force herself to vomit blood. She was merciless to herself. Flipping her own hand around, Xian Yuaning took hold of Feng Wu's hand with a smile on her face. Chapter 11:15. Going to court for an imperial edict. Chapter 11:15. Going to court for an imperial edict. My dear sister, it was all my fault. I failed to recognize what a great person you were before. Will you forgive me? Feng Wu glanced at Xian Yuaning. Forgive you? Xian Yuaning nodded repeatedly. Feng Wu only gave her a half smile. Forgiveness isn't really my thing, and the Xian Yuan family will have to apologize for the wrong things you've done. Xian Yuaning wanted to talk her way out of it, and Feng Wu would never let her do so. Sister Feng Wu. Tears rolled down Xian Yuanying's cheeks. Sister Xiao Wu, you're right. It was all my fault in the beginning. I was misled by slanderous talk, which was why. Slanderous talk. Feng Wu only smiled slightly. Xian Yuaning had been probing Feng Wu's bottom line the entire time, and seeing that the latter seemed about to relent, She went on in a hurry. That's right. It's all Feng Lu's fault. She said that you didn't have an invitation and had a bad reputation. That was why Feng Lu felt a throbbing pain in her chest when she heard that, and she stared at Xian Yuaning in disbelief. The things she said. Xian Yuaning went on. Sister Xiaowu, I'm sorry. My opinion was biased, which was why I was so impolite. Do whatever you want with me. She gave Feng Lu up and blamed everything on the latter, then righteously said that she herself should be the target of Feng Wu's anger. She could adapt to the situation, had a glib tongue, and was eloquent and quick to react. She had even dragged Feng Lu into this, and let everyone know about the strife between Feng Lu and Feng Wu, cousins of the Feng family. This Xian Yuaning was an interesting character. Feng Lu was about to step out and retort, but next to her, Sui Qingyu stopped her and covered her mouth. The girl then shot Feng Lu a warning glance and said something in her ear. Feng Lu wanted to say something, but gave up in the end. Feng Wu looked past Xian Yuaning with a half-hearted smile at Sui Qingyu, Dugu Yamo, Feng Lu, and Feng Sang in turn. The looks on their faces were really interesting. Meanwhile, members of the Xian Yuan kept trying to defuse the situation. Even Xian Yuanzhe and Lady Kai had to join in and speak in a humble manner. Lady Northern Feng had been given all the respect she could be given. The others would find her unreasonable if she still pretended to want to leave now. Xian Yuanyu was an even smoother talker. Lady Northern Feng. Both families are very influential in the imperial capital. If we fall out like this and word gets out, it won't reflect well on either of us. Don't you think so? It might be fine if it really was a dispute, but what happened was a mere quarrel. It really isn't worth it, am I right? Lady Northern Feng felt like she had just won a war and was over the moon. She knew that she had found a great opportunity as soon as she heard that Feng Wu had been targeted by the Xian Yuan clan. Both His Majesty and His Majesty the Empress Dowager knew about her intention to have Feng Wu as her goddaughter, but neither gave her permission to throw a big party, which displeased Lady Northern Feng. She just wanted a goddaughter. Why wouldn't they let her have that party? Wouldn't that make people assume that she didn't think her daughter was important enough? Lady Northern Feng made up her mind. She had to let everyone know. Hence, she went to court in a hurry. As soon as she got to the imperial palace, she complained to the Empress Dowager in tears, telling the latter how rude and unreasonable the Xian Yuan family was, how tough her own life was with her husband away all the time, and how the Xian Yuan clan was bullying Northern Feng Mansion. The Empress Dowager and the Emperor gave in to her tears. She then mentioned how Feng Wu had saved Jun Lingyuan's life. The royal family hadn't rewarded her for that yet. She saved his life, and if the favor isn't returned, the bond between the two of them will only grow stronger. As soon as Lady Northern Feng said that, the Empress Dowager and His Majesty agreed in unison to make Feng Wu a princess. Chapter 1116, A Grand Plan. Chapter 1116, A Grand Plan. Lady Northern Feng was very pleased with the outcome, and had arrived at the Xian Yuan mansion in a cheerful mood. She had hid the imperial edict at first to wait for the Xian Yuan family to show their hand. And it worked. When Xian Yuan Shuyue jumped out to distort the facts, Lady Northern Feng presented them with the imperial edict, and Feng Wu was able to make her mark in the first instance. Lady Northern Feng, it's about time. The old master will be out in a moment. If he knows that we let you leave like this, he'll punish us all. Holding Lady Northern Feng's hand, Lady Yu smiled wryly. Lady Yu was a nice person, whom Lady Northern Feng had dealt with before. It was just that Feng Wu had been mistreated this time. Hence, Lady Northern Feng asked Feng Wu, Xiao Wu, what do you think? Since Lady Northern Feng had been so domineering earlier, Feng Wu knew that she had to dial down her tone now. After all, they had demonstrated whatever needed to be demonstrated. Hence Feng Wu smiled. Mother, I'll do as you say. Seeing how considerate Feng Wu was, Lady Northern Feng liked the girl even more. The party resumed, and the crowd separated into groups once again. The youngsters got together with people of their own age, and the noble ladies mingled among themselves. But Feng Wu was sitting with Lady Northern Feng at the moment, and naturally, the other ladies came to pay their respects in a never-ending stream. Those attending the birthday party at the Xianyuan Manor were either from influential families or officials of the second rank or above. Seeing Lady Northern Feng sitting there, the ladies went up to her one after another. "Miss Feng Wu is so pretty. Lady Northern Feng, how lucky you are. I can tell right away that Miss Feng Wu has a great personality. She's so level-headed. Miss Feng Wu." As they spoke, the ladies began to take off their bracelets and other personal belongings, and gave them to Feng Wu as gifts for their first meeting. They surrounded Lady Northern Feng and Feng Wu, creating a boisterous scene. Next to them, Lady Kai's face turned livid. After all, the Xianyuan family was the host tonight. So why did it look like Lady Northern Feng had just taken over? What were these ladies thinking? They didn't even try to hide their efforts at playing up to Lady Northern Feng. As the wife of the oldest son of the Xianyuan family, Lady Kai looked disgruntled when she saw this. Next to her, Lady Yu saw Lady Kai's reaction and smiled a little. Her sister-in-law had always thought highly of herself and taken advantage of her distinguished status. But when Lady Northern Feng was around, Lady Kai could only feel stifled. How interesting. And what was Xianyuaning doing at this moment? She had been dragged into a small room by Zuoqingyu and the others. Xianyuaning, Zuoqingyu, Dugu Yamo, Feng Lu, and Feng Sang were all there. Feng Lu was the first to cry out when she saw Xianyuaning, and she looked aggrieved. "Sister Ing, how could you give them my name? When?" Xianyuaning frowned. Xianyuaning was already upset after being forced to apologize, and hearing Feng Lu's accusation, she wanted to hit someone. However, Zuoqingyu took Xianyuanying's hand, shook her head at the latter, and said something in a low voice. Their eyes met, and they nodded at each other. Holding Feng Lu's hand, Xianyuaning looked like she was going to cry. "Sister Lu Er, you saw what happened just then. If I didn't say that, we would all be in trouble. Plus, you really were the one who told us that. I didn't exactly wrong you, did I?" Feng Lu said. But Zuoqingyu looked sincerely into Feng Lu's eyes. "The most important thing right now is for us to take Feng Wu down together. Don't you agree? After the wrong you suffered today, she still looked so satisfied. Can you live with that outcome?" Of course she couldn't. "Sister Zua, do you have any ideas?" The others turned to Zuoqingyu. Chapter 11:17, Goad Her into Action. Chapter 11:17 Goad Her into Action. Well, Zuoqingyu looked embarrassed. She began to speak, then hesitated. Xianyuaning took Zuoqingyu's hand. "Sister Zua, this is no time to hold back. Just tell us. We're all ears." Zuoqingyu said, "Well, it's not very nice." Feng Lu said, "Why does it have to be nice? After what Feng Wu did to us, she deserves anything we do to her." Zuoqingyu asked, "Do you all think that way?" The others nodded. Even Dugu Yamo, who hadn't had a chance to speak up to now, chimed in. "As the onlooker here, I can't watch anymore. This Feng Wu is so arrogant that she has to be taught a lesson." Since everyone agrees, all right. Zuoqingyu beckoned everyone over, lowered her voice, then told them her plan. In the end she added, "It's just a suggestion, an idea. As for if it will work. If we do that, will my brother be affected?" Xianyuaning sounded concerned. Dugu Yamo snapped, "How will that happen? Your brother is only a decoy, while the real person that'll end up there, hee. Xianyuaning snapped her fingers. "I know just the right person for the job." Hearing the plan, Feng Sang quietly tugged at Feng Lu's hand. "Are you sure about this? Sister, please don't tell me that you're still concerned about her welfare. You might think of her as family, but she's never thought the same of us." Feng Lu was furious. Feng Sang frowned. "Family or not, if this gets out, our futures will be affected too, since we're cousins of the same clan." Feng Lu only waved her off. Hasn't Lady Northern Feng taken her in as a goddaughter? If Feng Wu is going to bring disgrace to someone, It'll be to Northern Feng Mansion. Look, we were brought up by the Feng clan, but we've never done anything like that. She'll be the only one. So, it'll have nothing to do with the Feng clan, and only Northern Feng Mansion will be implicated. I'd like to see how much Lady Northern Feng will want her as a daughter then. Jealousy could drive people to madness. Back at the dinner party, Xian Yuaning went up to Lady Kai with a grin and held the latter's arm. Lady Kai had unhappy written all over her face. Xian Yuaning then leaned over and whispered in her ear, "Mother, don't worry. I'll make her pay for everything she did to you." Lady Kai's stomach lurched. "What are you going to do?" Xian Yuaning only smiled but said nothing. She then went over to Feng Wu and held her arm. "Sister Feng Wu, there are so many grown-ups here and it's boring. How about you join us?" Lady Northern Feng stared at Xian Yuaning and thought that the latter looked very mean. She was about to turn the offer down for Feng Wu when the latter rose to her feet with a smile. Smoothing down the non-existent wrinkles on her dress, she said, "Sister Ing has kindly invited me over. I would be letting her down if I don't go. Mother, I'm going with her." Feng Wu hadn't forgotten why she was here at the Xianyuan mansion. She had come here to find traces of the second broken star piece. But ever since setting foot in this place, she had been limited to this room without the chance to go anywhere, which made her worry a little. Xian Yuaning had shown up at the right moment to give Feng Wu an opportunity. It was like giving a sleepy person a pillow, and of course, Feng Wu wouldn't turn her down. Lady Northern Feng knew how smart Feng Wu was. Seeing that she had agreed to go, Lady Northern Feng cautioned her daughter, "Be careful. You don't have to be overcautious though. If anyone is stupid enough to mess with you, just kick their asses. I'll have your back no matter what." Chapter 11:18 Bright Dragon Soil. Chapter 11:18 Bright Dragon Soil. Those around them all drew in their breaths. Lady Northern Feng was such a tough character. She taught her daughter quite differently from everyone else. Lady Kai's face turned darker, for she felt as if Lady Northern Feng was mocking her. But it wasn't like Lady Kai could retort. Xian Yuaning looked stumped for a split second, but was soon back to normal. She smiled at Lady Northern Feng. "Your ladyship is right, but please don't worry. I won't let anything happen to Sister Wu. When everything is over, I'd like to see if Lady Northern Feng will still want this daughter." Xian Yuaning smirked inwardly. In the backyard, Xian Yuaning led Feng Wu all the way there, and soon met up with Zhuo Qingyu and the others. Everyone welcomed Feng Wu warmly this time. Zhuo Qingyu smiled. "Sister Wu is so pretty." Dugu Yamo said, "I agree with Qingyu. Before, I thought Sister Zhuo Qingwan was the most beautiful person in the imperial capital. But Sister Wu is equally pretty, if not better." Zhuo Qingyu didn't flinch when she heard that. Rather, her smile turned even brighter. "You don't say. My sister really isn't as pretty as Sister Wu here. As Zhuo Qingwan's own sister, I can attest to that." Xian Yuaning said, "Oh my, I heard that. Sister Zhuo will beat you up when she gets back." Dugu Yamo looked at Zhuo Qingyu. "Your sister is coming back." Zhuo Qingyu glanced at Feng Wu with a smile. "I think she'll be back after she becomes a spiritual lord." "A spiritual lord?" All the girls drew in their breaths. Xian Yuaning said, "Isn't that too high a goal? How long do we have to wait to see Sister Qingwan?" "It won't be that long." Zhuo Qingyu glanced at Feng Wu indifferently, then said with a smile, "With my sister's talent, she'll become a spiritual lord in less than a year." "Less than a year? Oh God, is that even possible? What level is Sister Qingwan at now?" Everyone cried out in surprise. Their reactions weren't for Feng Wu. Zhuo Qingwan really was making progress so fast that her peers were feeling the pressure. They felt that they couldn't even begin to catch up to her. Zhuo Qingyu darted another look at Feng Wu, then smiled. "My sister? I heard from my father the other day that she's a level 7 spiritual elder already." Seriously? Xian Yuaning was the first one to cry out. Didn't she only just become a spiritual elder? Zhuo Qingyu raised her head and looked proud. "You know very well how talented my sister is. Other people have been making such quick progress, Can my sister be slower than that? By other people, she obviously meant Feng Wu. Everyone sighed in amazement, for Zhuo Qingwan's speed of progress was way beyond their expectations. If that's the case, the only girl good enough for His Royal Highness is Sister Qingwan. I can't think of anyone else. Even Xian Yuaning had to admit that. As they chatted, Feng Wu frowned a little. So, did these people bring her out here so that she could listen to stories about Zhuo Qingwan? Feng Wu was about to find an excuse to leave, when Xian Yuaning cried out, "I got it!" Everyone looked at her in bewilderment. Xian Yuaning said, "Just the other day, someone gave my grandfather a precious birthday gift." The others asked in unison, "What gift?" Xian Yuaning said, "Bright dragon soil." "What's bright dragon soil?" Feng Lu was confused. So was Zhuo Qingyu. Dugu Yamo cried out, "Bright dragon soil? Really? The legendary bright dragon soil, that's supposed to be able to refine one's talent?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.